Hello everyone, welcome to another How We Felt About. It's me, Captain Logan. Tonight we're going to tell you how we felt about Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse. And we got a big panel tonight. DJ is going to be modding for us, so if you have questions and want to make sure that we talk about anything specific, make sure and aim them at DJ Martinez or at Spider DJ. He'll answer to anything. We've also got Spider Dan Torrey with us, and it's been a long time since we've had Dan on for anything. So Dan, thanks so much for joining us, man. We've missed you. We've missed you.
I've missed you guys too, and I would not have missed this because this movie rocks.
Well, now we know what Dan thinks, so he doesn't have to say anything now.
He doesn't have to do anything.
Bye, Dan.
We got his sign flip. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you, buddy.
Of course.
You just spoiled the video.
And we've got my son Jayson, who watched the movie with me yesterday. Jayson and I had a really weird viewing experience with this. We made the mistake of not getting tickets ahead of time, which has not been a problem in a very long time for us. But we got there and went to get our tickets, and there were like 5 seats left in the whole theater and spread apart from each other. So we went, but we didn't even sit next to each other. I don't think we've ever done that.
Oh, nice.
No, I don't think we have.
Like, I sat in the back and you were like three rows ahead of me, so we had to compare notes.
Were you like, Jayson, what do you think? Did you do that?
No, because
Okay.
it drives me nuts when other people do things like that in the movie theater, DJ.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about that before.
What was really funny is Jayson said that he had, like, annoying adults around him, and I had, like, super well-behaved children and teenagers. So that was pretty great. Anyway, has anybody but me managed to see the movie more than once?
I have not.
I have not.
Did you go, DJ?
I've seen it twice. I saw it again today, yeah.
Good, you did get to go. Cool. Because I know you said you were hoping to, but you didn't know if you would.
Yeah, we got into town, drove 5 hours to get here, and I said, Grace, you got to drop me off at the theater. First thing I'm doing in this town is watching Spider-Verse again.
That's awesome.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I'm really glad I had a chance to see it again for a couple reasons. Like I said, really weird viewing experience first time around. My eyes got all weird and puffy for some reason. And, like, I wasn't, like, my left eye teared up real hard. And it wasn't because I was crying. Although, I think I did have a couple of like, genuine tear-up places with this movie. Mostly just silly fanboy stuff. Getting to see stuff in the theater for the first time that was kind of a big deal for me. But that's not why this happened, I don't think. And I had, my left eye got all bloodshot and like, tingly. And I had to close it through, like, half of it. So I watched most of the movie with, like, one eye open. And I was like, I know I must have missed stuff while seeing it the first time. So I'm going to get it today. And I'm glad I did, because there were some things that I didn't like as well first time around that it won me over on the second time around. But I don't want to be like Dan and tell you exactly how I feel yet.
Did you want to go again so that you could catch all the cameos that you missed last time?
Well, and there was no catching all of it. I mean, this is
Right.
very much a freeze frame sort of situation, you know, if you care about nailing all of them. But I certainly saw some that I didn't notice the first time around.
Yeah.
There's some handy lists online. And there were a few that, in a list that I looked at where I was like, oh, I was wondering what that was supposed to be. Oh, okay.
Okay,
Now I know
I'll
what that
look
one
at some
was.
of those lists at some point then, because I didn't look at anything.
You didn't look at the screen?
No, I looked at the screen, but, like, while, like, I didn't prepare at all for this, except watch the movie.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm with you, Jayson. I kind of even forgot this movie was coming out this week until your dad messaged me about doing this show. I was like, oh, that's coming out?
I had the same thing, yeah.
That's a
I
good
was
surprise.
like, wasn't thinking about it at all. And then I got excited, like, 'cause I found out the day before, and I was like, oh, it's coming out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It completely snuck up on me, which is partly why I'm surprised it's doing as well as it is at the box office. I am wrong all the time with my predictions, so, like, nobody listen to me when I predict things in the Captain
There's
Logan
3
show.
people over 30 that are out of touch with what's going on in the world.
I said that I didn't expect this movie to do huge guns or anything based on the performance of the first movie, and considering it's been a whopping 5 years since the first one came out, and I don't know where all that time went. It hasn't been half a decade. Like it really doesn't feel like it. I'm not sitting here going like, oh, it's too late to release this. Like we've had that problem sometimes with, like, I think Shazam really had that issue where like potentially if that sequel comes out a little closer to its initial release, maybe more people would care. But this was also a very different situation in that I look at this as like a Batman Begins kind of thing now, where you had Begins, which was like beloved by critics and people that saw it liked it, but it didn't do huge guns at the box office. And then people saw it on video, and then Dark Knight was like the second coming of Christ. And this has something of that kind of thing again, where I think a lot of people saw it late and found it streaming and on video, and it won an Oscar, and so then it got a lot of buzz, and now suddenly people really want to see it in the theater because it's so visually striking. They're like, oh, we missed that, and I'm like, I've heard this from some folks that are like, I'm really bummed that I missed that first one in the theater. That looks like a really good theater going experience, and so now people are going. And here's another prediction that I shouldn't make because I'm always wrong, but I don't think there will be a crazy drop off first to second week. I think it'll continue to do pretty well into the second and third week because of word of mouth. Particularly because of the way it ends, because I think that also snuck up on a lot of people, and I think word of mouth is going to spread, and people are going to go, oh, this is like an event thing, and there's going to be a little bit, I don't mean it'll be to this degree, but there might be a little bit of an Infinity War to Endgame kind of thing with this, where like this movie is doing really well. That third movie could do dynamite. It could be a very different story.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the first one, I think has retroactively gotten a lot of hype in people's eyes from like the Academy Award win that it got for Best Animated Feature and all the good word of mouth. So, I mean, I'm just really glad to see a good comic book movie making this kind of money because it shows that there's still interest in the genre if it's done well. And I hope that studios learn from this kind of thing.
Well, and also, now that you say that, I'll mention this. Forgetting just however some of us feel about No Way Home, that couldn't have hurt this either.
Yeah,
that being as well liked as it was, and being also a multiverse thing, and people came out for the cameos with that, and this is that kind of thing. So, Dan, I don't know if the reason it's as good or the reasons that it's as good as you're saying it is, because I don't want to flip my sign yet, is necessarily right away the reason it's doing as well as it is, because I think that's more superficial, but I think it'll have legs because of that.
I agree. I think it's going to have a long tail. Like, I don't think you're going to see the kind of drop-offs that you see in the second weekend with stuff like Fast X and some of the other big blockbusters that are coming out, like to okay opening weekends, and then like the movies are so terrible that they get bad word of mouth and like nobody goes back again. So I think this is going to be kind of the opposite trend, which is exciting.
And it's also a big deal if this does as well as it looks like it's going to now, that it's coming out the same year as the Super Mario Brothers movie, because that is going to be a 1-2 punch for animation that this country desperately needs. And
yes.
I fear that Hollywood will, as always, not learn exactly the right lessons from it, but some good projects could come out of it. I mean, we've got, and I don't know how this is going to be yet, but like we've got that animated Ninja Turtles movie coming out in August.
I'm really hopeful about that one. I think the first two trailers, I think it could go either way. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to that one. I hope it's good.
Well, and I was hoping I could get you to come back for that one, Dan, because you and I did the other live action Ninja Turtles movies together, and you famously in 2014 called that first live action Paramount movie an adaptation of the Ninja Turtles Wikipedia page, which I have quoted you on probably 35 times on the channel.
Oh, thank you.
And I need you to come back for what might be an actual decent one.
I'd love to. Is that next year when that comes out?
No, that's August. That's this
year.
Wow. That's in 2 months.
I'm totally out of the loop. I don't know what's going on.
Man, if we get an amazing Spider-Man movie and an amazing Turtles movie in 1 year, that'd be amazing.
Great.
Yeah, and Spectacular and Web of.
Well, I was gonna save this for later, but since you said that, Cap, this might have been the most perfect movie for that title that you always bring up, to be called Web of Spider-Man, of any other Spider-Man movie that we could ever get. So it doesn't look like you're ever gonna get that title, but it would have worked for this.
Maybe not, but I am really digging the naming scheme that they're going with these now that we know what all three titles are.
Yeah.
It's great. This is going to be, you know, I compared it to Begins. This is going to be a weird situation where it's a retroactive trilogy that will look possibly planned all along, or at least will work really well as a trilogy, and I'm like shocked by that. I mean, like reverse Nolan Batman, where like that was kind of forced into a trilogy thing, and this is, you know, I came into this going, why does the second one have to be Spider-Verse again? Why couldn't we go some other places with some of these characters, give them spin-offs and things? And I was hoping desperately that it would win me over on that. And I don't want to tell you my feelings yet. Okay, let's get a brief synopsis. As always, guys, we're going to let you help us direct the conversation as much as humanly possible. There's 4 of us. There's going to be a kind of natural flow of conversation, so we'll do as much of that as humanly possible. It helps that I've got DJ moderating, but DJ still obviously jump in every time you've got things to bring to the table, because you've got feelings and, you know, you're a Spider-Man guy. If you want to make sure that a particular aspect of the movie is talked about, or that your opinion is known, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount, and we'll guarantee that we do that with the super chat. Otherwise, chat amongst yourselves in the comments, and we'll grab onto at least a few comments as we move along. Jayson.
No, make DJ do it.
Oh,
Jayson,
no,
would you kindly give us a brief synopsis
What
of
the
Across
heck
the Spider-Verse?
happened in this movie? I don't. Brief synopsis. I don't even know.
Okay, DJ, would you kindly give us
Oh, no. I should have never said I saw it twice.
give us a setup. What happens? A 3-4 sentence setup. And non-spoilers, of course, initially, and then we'll get into stuff.
Yeah, I would just say there were consequences to the ending of the last film that we did not know about, that is causing a little task force to be put together to clean up some messes like Spider-Man always has to do. And of course, you've got your two main leads from the first movie. I didn't know how brief you wanted me to be. You've got your 2 main leads from the first movie, both dealing with their continued stories, which was very great for me to see, because I wasn't sure who we were going to be following in this movie, and I didn't know if it was going to be single protagonist, but it's very much a dual protagonist thing.
Yep.
Which is very exciting. And yeah, so you've got, I don't even know, because I don't know what was in the trailers, because I didn't watch the trailer, so I'm really trying not to spoil anything. So I'm like the worst person to do this.
I didn't watch the trailers either.
As set up in after credits from the first movie, leading said task force is Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099. My personal favorite Spider-Man outfit, anyway. I like Miguel O'Hara a lot. I certainly am not going to put him above Peter Parker as my favorite Spider-Man, but it's my favorite Spider-Man aesthetic. I love 2099.
He's a great character in his own right, though. Like those Peter
is.
David comics from the '90s rock. Like he's a cool character.
Dan and I reviewed the first couple of story arcs of that several years ago, and never got to the rest of it because we were having a hard time tracking down some other issues that it connected to. Maybe someday one or both of us will finish that. And then our main villain is one of my beloved Spider-Man villains.
I know. I was like,
the Spot.
Yeah.
It's like they just made a movie for Cap and Logan. They went, oh, what's Cap's favorite Spider-Man things that nobody else cares about? Is not nobody else
the whole time, Cap.
This insane 2099 resurgence over the last decade just makes my Captain Little heart so happy.
Did you know that the first question, like this was like, I don't know, 12 years ago?
Yeah.
Did you know that the first question in Geeky Trivia was about the Spot?
Oh,
You were like what's
way
this
back
character? And everyone was like, it's the Spot.
Oh, I wish I'd known that. I would have played that video before this.
Yeah.
You would call it your shot.
Let's go ahead and do sign flips, guys. We'll make this as brief as possible before we get to spoilers. And once we get to the spoiler section, guys, feel free to ask about anything with spoilers, and everybody's just going to have to expect that things will get spoiled at that point. But we'll do our non-spoiler section. We'll go round robin. Tell us your best thing, worst thing, and your just kind of general feelings walking out of the theater. And because we haven't seen Dan in like half a year for some reason, we're gonna start with Dan. Dan, give us your sign flip, and go ahead.
My sign flip is green, as you may have been able to predict. Are we doing best thing, worst thing too?
Yes, sir.
My best thing is that somebody allowed creators to make a Spider-Man movie, which was a movie about like interpersonal character dynamics and themes about responsibility and your loyalty to your family and all these kind of things. I feel like we haven't made a movie about those kind of things since like, I don't know, maybe. I mean, the Tom Holland movie, the first two are pretty good, but like, I don't know, the movie that last focused on those themes like in a way that was satisfactory to me anyway was the first Andrew Garfield movie. So it was really refreshing to once again. The first one was like that, but there were a lot of things in this that really like tugged at my heartstrings and I thought were really relatable. And then I guess worst thing is. The premise that it's built upon, which is like the exact opposite of what I would have wanted out of a Spider-Man movie, but they somehow win me over on it, so it's not really a negative. I don't know.
I don't know how they do that, man. They did the same thing to me.
Yeah.
And I should have been ready for it after the first one, but I was like still hesitant going into this one, and still they won me over again.
Yeah,
anyway, I guess
couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Okay, let's hear from Jayson next.
Okay. I knew you were going. Okay, so
You had to go at some point.
green. I don't know. Everyone else is probably green, so I don't have to say anything else. Green. Best thing. This movie is gorgeous. I love the animation. I love all the Spider-Verse stuff with all the different Spider-Mans. I love 2099's animation. I love Spot's animation. It's great. And then, worst thing, it's a little too long. I think it's just, I mean, okay, Spider-Man needs to have its, drama, like what Dan was saying with, family drama and stuff. I think they pushed that a little too hard. I think they did a little too much of it, and I got a little bored of it. I just kind of wanted more of, the action stuff, and it just wasn't. I don't know. I don't know if that's just my,
Sensibilities?
yeah.
Did you feel like those scenes went on too long, or did you feel like they weren't effective?
I think they just went on too long, and there were too many of them.
So you didn't think that they were too melodramatic or sappy or anything?
No.
So it wasn't a writing issue?
No, it wasn't. They just did too many of it.
Okay.
They just did too much of it. I just thought.
Might just be an age or perspective thing, and that's not a slight against you or maturity or anything. It's very much a movie from.
He's
the
really asking why you're here.
No, because it's very much for the parent. I was not expecting to have a Spider-Man movie where I resonated with the parents so much.
They were fantastic.
It's all about parenting from front to back. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I understand if that stuff's not your bag. There's a couple kids next to me that were kind of groaning and kind of talking during those parts too on my second viewing. So, but they were way more annoying than you. I'm not comparing you to them. That kid was super annoying.
DJ, let's hear from you.
Sure. My big takeaway that I was very happy to come away with was that it seems like the studio just got out of the way and let them make the movie they wanted to make, which I was not confident, and I didn't really have too many reasons to, except for I've been hearing chatter and buzz that they were doing reshoots, and I was like, crap, they're probably getting involved because it got so popular. And then after No Way Home, they wanted force more cameos and stuff like that in, but it doesn't seem like they really derailed everything. It seems like they may have came in at the 11th hour and forced them to add some stuff, but the filmmakers did it in such a way that was so minor that it didn't affect the story at all, and it was just, it was there. If we have to have it, fine, we'll put it there, but we're not going to mess up our story. We have a story we want to tell. We have a plan that we want to do. And I was so happy to see that because I was so worried that they were gonna ruin this thing, and very happy to see that. And I'll give two very superficial things for my best and worst thing. because we're probably going to talk about all the story stuff in a minute. But worst thing, again, superficial thing, as I just said. I thought a lot of the cameos that I just mentioned were kind of lame, and I don't know if I want to get into spoilers. There's a certain kind of cameo that they do that I don't think looks good in this animation style at all, and it took me out when they mixed that stuff.
Yeah, I know just what you're talking. We'll get there. We'll talk about that.
Really didn't like that. So some of those took me out. Did not bother me as much on a second viewing because it wasn't so stark. I was able to move past it because they're very minor, like I said. And then the best superficial thing is that Daniel Pemberton weaves the Spider-Man Unlimited theme through the 2099 theme, and it's amazing. He's brilliant. He's a genius. I can't believe he did that. That should have been a 2099 show in the first place.
Yep.
The fact that he just made his theme in this movie, the Spider-Man Unlimited theme song, was amazing, and I freaked out when it happened in the theater. Maybe that was in the trailer. Maybe that was already spoiled. I didn't know about it until I saw him show up with Spider-Gwen, and I was like, that's awesome. I can't believe he did that.
On a superficial level, I thought it was really cool that in one scene, Miguel O'Hara had the Spider-Man Unlimited cape. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
And he's got that in the comics.
What's that?
He's got that cape in the comics.
Yeah, I remember, like, it's a little bit shorter, I think. That's
okay.
Like the Unlimited one is like a full like the web cape that he has.
See, I haven't seen Unlimited in so long. I wasn't thinking Unlimited. I was geeking out the other way where I was like, oh, good that we remembered he had a web cape.
yeah. No, that stuff is awesome.
Because he's got that, I think, on like page 1. I think like that double page spread.
Yeah, you might be right.
It's
I can't
been
remember.
too long.
Yeah, I mean,
they're right behind me. I could pull it out, but I'm not going to.
True.
But yeah, when that I was like, oh, that's so good. And his score is still just. I'm so glad they kept him on this because he did such a good job for the first movie. I was worried that once it got more acclaim and it was a bigger movie, they would jump to a bigger composer, but they didn't. They kept him, and that was really cool of them because he's killing it.
No, and I think he outdid himself with the first movie from the first movie. Honestly, I mean, he's got like 3 different scores he's doing for this one. That's what I was gonna say. There's so many different characters and so many different motifs that he's got to weave in and out. That's really impressive. But also with particularly 2099, I just loved what that did tonally for the future stuff and everything. That it kind of put me in the mood I was hoping it would with that stuff. There's a part of me that goes, okay, I kind of wish the whole movie was this.
Well, that's what came out of the last one saying, is I want a whole 2099 movie.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. That's just me kind of geeking out about it. But I was like, and actually, I don't mean I wish, because obviously I love the interpersonal stuff as well, and the paralleling with the like parental issues and the specific teen angst kind of situations that both of our protagonists are going through is beautifully worked together, and like how could you not love this as a potential romantic couple? Like it's some of the best chemistry we've had in superhero movies, and I thought that with the first film, but now that they're actually like kindling something and moving forward, and we can just kind of come right out and spell out we're the same. I love them together even a lot more than I did before. Like I had never really in comics paralleled their backstories and situations the way this movie very creatively and cleverly does. And some of it should be kind of obvious, and it's like, I could even see people not liking one or the other in reading comics if they noticed it, because one might seem too derivative of the other. But this movie just goes, oh, isn't it kind of interesting that both their dads are cops, and that they're both captains? And I'd never really thought about that before.
No, yeah, I really enjoyed all of that paralleling stuff, and they even work it into the plot in an interesting way. Because the movie is sort of all about like Miguel O'Hara trying to preserve the sort of canon events and the history of every Spider-Man, and Miles is like an anomaly. Miles finds out that his father is supposed to die because he's like the police captain, like the Captain Stacy that dies in every Spider-Man's continuity or life or whatever. So I don't know, all that stuff I thought was fantastic. It was really cool.
Yeah, I'll use that to segue into my best thing, Dan, and I'll just start in the super positive place.
It's green.
Of course,
sorry, I've never said it's obvious, but yeah, it's green.
It's obligatory. You have to do it. So obviously, I am also flipping green. Let me start at best thing, and then I'll backtrack. And I kind of also want to do the superficial best thing, worst thing too.
It's so fun.
But I will start with just saying that I have the kind of opposite thing that Dan does coming into this, where I'm like a multiverse guy, and I'm sick of it not of writers not doing creative and clever things with it, where like I got tired of multiverse in comics 10-15 years ago, like a lot of us did, because it was just a way to do gimmicky crossovers, and it was a lot of kind of technobabble and not enough real I don't know, I'm not naming any particular stories, but just constantly with both of the big two, we would kind of use it in place of interesting character-driven and idea-driven stories. And I know what it can be because I've seen it done well, and it's one of my favorite things to write. My first novel is a multiverse thing. So whenever comic fans go, oh god, I hate multiverse, I was kind of cringe because I'm like, but I know you could be won over by it and love it because I know the potential for like exploring a character through the possibilities of who they might have been if only they made different choices when you look at their counterparts in other dimensions. Like there's really cool character driven stuff you can do with multiversal stories. So my best thing is the meta mythology with this movie. I'm a sucker not just for good multiverse, but also good metafiction. And Lord and Miller are, in a way, going to the stuff that made me fall in love with Lego Movie all over again. And I think they're likely to really push the envelope of that in the third movie, given that it's called Beyond the Spider-Verse, and that makes me think that there's the potential to get to almost like a real world, where did these characters come from in the first place kind of place with it, like the creative origins. Like there's somebody that actually like writes and draws these characters, and that was just killer in the Lego Movie, and it could be awful or it could be wonderful, and I'm excited to see if they actually go that far with it. The first movie was really creative also with the way it brought in its other Spider-Mans and stuff, but it wasn't meta in this way. And there's this minor spoiler, but there's this real cool kind of foreshadowing bit toward the beginning where Spider-Gwen is fighting the Vulture in a museum, and he says something about a piece of modern art not actually being art, and she says, well, it's more of a meta commentary on what we see as art, but is kind of in and of itself art. That's the film. She's talking about the movie. And that's what I love about it. That is what this movie is, and I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. With comic material in particular, and you know it's really easy with a movie like this to give it just the generic praise of it's so comic book, but the way in which this is so comic book is taking the kinds of risks that a lot of live action movies have been terrified to take, and in real out there outlandish kind of situations like this. And what I also really appreciate about it is the mythology makes sense. Like the rules, for the most part, I've got a couple questions, but the rules for how the multiverse work and what's at stake and why, as bizarre and absurd as it is, why we have to worry about universes crumbling if we don't stick to the comic book formula. It all makes sense, and it doesn't, like I said earlier, hinge on a bunch of technobabble. So yeah, that's my favorite thing about the movie, and also that they nail the spot in 2099 as well as they do. And 2099, I was worried, and not to get too spoilery yet, but we go to a dark enough place with him where I was like, how far under the bus are we throwing Miguel O'Hara here? And again, there are a few things that could go either way right now when you get into the next movie. Like, is it possible that I won't like this movie as well if the third one doesn't stick the landing? Yes, but all I can do is talk about where I'm at the moment, because and I don't feel like I'm spoiling too much in saying this, because it was already public knowledge before we came into this that this was part 1. Although I thought it was going to be Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and the next movie was going to be Across the Spider-Verse Part 2. But a lot of the merchandising has been saying Part 1, I guess, just so that people won't be pissed off when it's a cliffhanger. But everybody around me was.
Yeah, I had no idea going in. I was like, we're getting pretty far into this movie, and this does not seem like we're wrapping this up.
I had forgotten all about it, so I'm looking at my watch toward the end, going, wait, we don't have enough time to resolve this. Oh, that's right, it's part 1. I totally forgot about that.
I will say, to Jason's point about the movie feeling a little too long, I did have a bit of a Return of the King thing with this movie where I thought it was going to end at like 3 different points and then it kept going. And I was satisfied by the things that it showed when it kept going. Like the cliffhanger of this movie is the best thing ever. But like I did have that kind of feeling towards the end where I was like, I feel like, because I did know that it was going to be 2 parts, so I was like, I feel like this is where they're going to cut it off, or this is where they're going to cut it off. But I was glad we ended it where it ended up ending.
My worst thing, and we can talk about this more when we actually get into spoilers, is a little bit about how, and this is in and of itself a minor spoiler, but a little bit in how the older Peter Parker from the first movie is handled. We do a thing with that I don't care for.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that. My superficial best thing though is beefy 90s comic book Ben Reilly.
Yes.
He's amazing.
It's amazing.
I love it so much. And I was thinking of Dan the entire time. Because Dan and I have...
That was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Because Dan and I have reviewed some crappy 90s Venom comics, and we've read a lot of the kind of dialogue that he's doing there, and he's like overly angsty but and melodramatic, which is funny. But what's even funnier about it is when he starts explaining what you're looking at. Like we do in a lot of early 90s comics. There's minor, we'll start getting into spoilers here, but
I'm going into the alley. I am in the alley now.
It reminded me a lot of Todd McFarlane writing, like the alley thing specifically. You know?
Yeah, I was thinking of Cap telling me what Spawn is like during that whole thing, because I've never read Spawn myself, but when he jumps in the alley, he's like, I'm looking at the walls, they're normal.
The walls are fine.
It's amazing.
I would have been okay with twice as much of 90s comic book.
Yeah, he's like the Spider-Man noir of this movie.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
He's the super quotable that you want way more of and you want a whole movie of.
Yeah, and kind of parroting what he is to some degree without taking it too far out of the fiction. Because noir in the first movie is making fun of noir a little bit, and it's it's satirizing that at the same time as it's straight up doing it.
Absolutely,
it's got its tongue firmly in its cheek with it. Yeah.
I thought that the Ben Reilly was awesome because he's kind of a parody of what Miguel O'Hara is. Like, he's the dark, tortured Spider-Man, and then Ben Reilly is the one that's just, like, has his drooling face against a post, like, contemplating his, like, tragic memories.
That's why I love that Ben Reilly was sort of his right-hand man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, them interacting together is awesome.
It is, yeah.
And neither of them is remotely self-aware about it.
No, not at all. It's awesome.
Okay, let's go ahead and get into straight-up spoilers now. So if you don't want to know anything more specific about what happens in the movie until you have a chance to see it, stop watching right now.
And then you can watch it later when you want. But if you don't want to, like, get spoiled about it, then leave.
Tom put in a $10 super chat and says he didn't like this. He says, I should probably go see it again. I found the live-action cameos souring of the enjoyment, thinking that 2099 is going to turn out to be a Doc Ock-like in Superior. I'm not...
I don't think that makes a lick of sense, but I hope that it may happen for you. We'll see.
The live-action bits... there's not enough of it to like completely throw me off, but the first time it was done I was like, I don't know how I feel about this choice. And then there's places where I think it's handled actually really tastefully. Like with the archive footage with Amazing and the Maguire films, I thought all that was fine. That was a lot like and I should have said this at the beginning. This movie is Turtles Forever on steroids. It is doing exactly what that movie did, like 3 times better, or at least a couple times better. I like Turtles Forever quite a bit.
I like Turtles Forever a lot.
But it does the same thing where it's like there's this Turtleverse, and that's why I'm thinking the third movie, Jayson, might do something like Turtle Prime, where it's like we go to the genesis of the Spider-Verse. We'll see if they go there. I'm curious about that. But Turtles Forever did the same thing. If you're not familiar with this, folks, there was a movie in, what was it, like 08, 09, that a TV...
Oh, was it that late?
Yeah, for TV that was a crossover thing with the 03 Turtles and the 87 Turtles. And the only thing that sucked about it was that they didn't have the rights to certain things from that show, so they couldn't get the voices back for 87, and they were glaring and egregious, and it was hard to listen to. But other than that, it was really cool. And anyway, there's this bit where 03 Shredder is standing in a room with a bunch of images of turtle things from screen and comics and everything, and they play some footage from the 90 movie and things like that, and putting all of it together, you've got all these different like conflicting art styles, and it was really cool to see on television. You know, they went that far and did that. So this is doing the same thing, but a couple of the like actual, you know, newly for this shot things, particularly with 616 with MCU, Uncle Aaron was kind of odd and off-putting.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. This is what I was talking about earlier when I gave my worst thing. I really didn't like the forced in. I think they bothered me a little more than Cap, because I just don't think it looks good. It just takes me out when we've got this beautiful animation style that we've made our own, and then we shove in stuff that I've already seen, and just putting live action with animation just looked really weird to me. Especially because whenever it's one of those, we linger way more than any of the other cameos. Like, I love Amazing Spider-Man movie more than anyone, but we linger on him with his uncle like so long. It's like holding on his face, and then we just hold on the Prowler on Donald Glover for like 15 seconds while he's just staring at Miles. I'm like, we saw him, you can go. You just gotta show it and move. It's a cameo. You don't have to hold so long. But yeah, those ones took me out. But the worst one is not even.
Look, they got him for a whole hour, DJ. They got to use as much footage as they can use.
Yeah, the worst one's not even a live action one. It's the Spectacular Spider-Man one, where we already saw him 3 times. He was in the same frame as Toby when they show the Uncle Ben scene, and he was in the same frame where Captain Stacy died, and he already spoke in that scene. And then we got a whole nother one where Miles goes, "What is this, an intervention?" And then he's like, in the middle of 2 of his lines, they shove in Spectacular come up, and just so we can get that voice actor to say something, he says a line that clearly like wasn't there because Miles just keeps on talking over to his next line, and it's like they just shoved in a Spectacular line right there, and it was really awkward and weird. So that was, but like Cap said, it's so small and tiny, it doesn't mess up with the movie at all. I just thought it was funny.
I agree with you that was a little shoved in. Total fair point with lingering on the live action a little bit longer, probably just because you know that the audience is more familiar with that stuff, and because
it's
we
like they
just did a movie with them last year.
Yeah, it's like they left in a little cheer spot for the audience there, which my audience didn't do, so it felt awkward.
My audience didn't do that either.
It's like they were trying to do the No Way Home thing where Andrew Garfield walks in and there's just like silence for like 30 seconds.
I don't think it was like that, but
no, it wasn't that long. I'm just saying it was kind of the same thing.
But I do take up for them for the choice of doing it, because I like that they were so creative and won me over as much as they did on Everything Counts. Because if you can nail that, it's a lot of fun, and I like the idea of like actually making a smart multiverse out of all of this, and like everything that you've ever, because Turtles Forever did it, and that was super cool, and I've always wanted to see something like this, bigger attempt it. And the CW screwed it up so bad that it's really cool to finally see somebody do something like this do it well. And Flash is going to attempt it too, so we'll see what that's like. But like after this, it's gonna have to work so much harder, because this is handled so well with that stuff.
Well, and they stayed consistent with the rules cap, where J. Jonah Jameson is voiced by the same actor in every universe still.
Yep.
Just like in the MCU. It's still him, which I had a problem with on first viewing, but it actually helps, because there's this part at the end of the movie where he's yelling over a speaker about a villain in the movie, and you would have no idea who was yelling if it wasn't that voice.
That's very true.
You wouldn't know it was J. Jonah Jameson. So it worked. It worked for me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because that's when he's in another universe. I guess we're in spoilers. He's in universe 42, and that's one of the reveals. There's so many good reveals there, and one of them is that he's yelling over the thing about the Prowler.
Well, and it's smarter than the way MCU has handled multiverse, because they went off and decided to call their universe 616, and then this movie gives it the designation that it always had in fandom, which is really funny. So now, like, they're conflicting on what the number is, and I'm gonna go with this one, because the 616 thing was especially dumb, because in Far From Home, that's a made-up designation, and then now it's real. But I don't know how anybody ever heard Mysterio say that, so like it doesn't make any sense. And this movie's like, yeah, it's 1919, whatever, and I'm like, that's what it always should have been. So now, and I don't want to get too bogged down in this, it doesn't matter, but it's also fun, to me anyway, to speculate about it. Do we have two totally different multiverses that just have kind of cross sections, or is it one multiverse now? I don't know. Like, I don't know if the multiverse we were dealing with MCU is exactly the same multiverse as this one, because is it playing by its own rules? I don't know.
What stuff did you guys' theaters kind of like
react to?
Because ours reacted to the Lego stuff.
Both showings I
humor
went to,
really
that
hit
was
for
one of the
people.
big laughs. Yeah.
I had a really entranced theater the first time, and no one really made a peep. It was a pretty good experience. The second theater, some people didn't cheer, but they freaked out when we see Miss Chen from Venom's universe for a second. They're like, what? And then
that was the one I hated the most, by the way. Because I don't even know if there's a Spider-Man in that universe, so why are we bothering going there? And if you haven't seen Venom, you'll be like, who the hell is that?
Right. And this is for kids.
We're there too long. Well, we'll talk about that, because that whole thing is really interesting. But I'm sorry, DJ, I didn't mean to step on you.
No, it was just that, and then they also did that same noise that I won't try to repeat for the Donald Glover stuff. When he showed up, they freaked out a little bit. But those are the big two.
That was actually the same with us, too.
Yeah, most of the cameos and then the humor stuff, I feel like the humor hit pretty well with everybody in my theater. Everyone was laughing at the right times and all that sort of stuff, so.
Can they stop it with the I'm Miles Morales? And I was bitten by a spider. They did that
forever.
10 times in the movie. Stop.
Well, they do it a lot more in the first one.
Do they do it a lot more in the first one?
Because I feel like every character, yeah.
Well, but there's not as many characters. If they did it for every character in this movie, then they would do 200. But
well, they do it with all 5 of the Spider-Man team, or 6.
right, but Miles Morales does it 5 times in this movie.
Himself, when we're already quite familiar with him, and in places it almost reads like recap, which is really amusing because there's a story structure where it's like a 5-part miniseries. We keep introducing the next section with a cover, and we give it its own like story title. And in some places, when he would start declaring, I'm Spider-Man again, which every time I hear that, it's hard not to just kind of go back to Arrow, like I have to become something else. But I think once or twice it would be shortly after you got that cover. So it's sort of like recap. It's like if you just tuned in now, but I'm watching a movie?
Yeah. I wonder if they'll like release it like that. If they like release it in like short 10-minute episodes or something.
No, that's not gonna happen.
They should.
They did an alternate wacky cut for the first movie.
Did they really?
So, yeah, there's an alternate universe cut that starts with a Spider-Ham cartoon that shows what he was doing before he gets sucked in.
Oh, I've never seen that.
It's pretty cool.
Oh, I have another thing that was a contender for my worst thing, another one in spoilers, for a superficial worst thing. Another one in spoilers, I can bring it up. We're jumping all over the place. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about just cameos and stuff. We need to get into the meat of the story and stuff, so maybe we can finish up any more of that talk we've got here in a second. But my other superficial worst thing is getting cut off when Miguel O'Hara is explaining his origin and then never getting back to it. Anybody that's not familiar with 2099 at all would have no idea how he became Spider-Man, and I wish that was in the movie somewhere.
Yeah, I with some of that stuff, like, it's hard to say for me because it's like, I feel like there's stuff about Miguel O'Hara's backstory that will be revealed in the third one that we don't know about yet.
That's true. It's not done yet, so can I complain about it?
I mean, that's totally fair. Like, this is, as a standalone film, like, I can see that criticism for sure. But I'm just saying I had the same thought as you. And I was thinking, will this be like the Kingpin thing in the first movie where, like, if you're a comic fan, you can, like, fully understand the Kingpin's motivation for doing what he's doing. But I think if you're not, like, if you don't know who Vanessa is and all that stuff, like, it doesn't work as well. I wondered if that would be like the same thing here or if they're going to do more, but I started to lean on the side, like, towards the end where he was, clearly becoming the main antagonist of the third film. I was like, there's got to be stuff with this guy that, like, we're going to do more with in the third one, I would imagine. But we'll see.
That's interesting you say that, Cap, because I don't know much about 2099. I did have that issue that they dropped, the issue number 1 when I was a kid, but I was so lost reading that issue by itself as a kid. So I feel like I feel like your audience not familiar with O'Hara is gonna, like, strap in for a second when he goes, "My name is Miguel O'Hara. I come from the year 2099," and then we just stop and we move on, and people in the theater have got to be like, "Okay, but, like, what about that though? Like where does he come from? How did he become Spider-Man?" And it's, to Dan's point, it's so thematically interesting when you do know his background that I really hope Dan's right, because DJ, the whole business of whether or not Miles Morales was, like, actually meant to be Spider-Man, whether he was fated to be Spider-Man, is in that, like, he's ruining the universe of the multiverse by becoming Spider-Man because he's not supposed to, is so interesting coming from 2099 as the guy spearheading the team to fix the multiverse, because Miguel O'Hara tried to create a serum that could make new Spider-Mans, and he accidentally made himself Spider-Man, so, like, he forced himself into that role. He also was not meant to be Spider-Man. So it's so cool coming from that character, but it's not in the movie yet. Well, yeah. Well, we got some of that, at least relatively thematically, where he took the place of another Miguel O'Hara and was Spider-Man, or was in that universe.
Yeah.
And then he says something to Peter, like, "Isn't that right, Peter?" And Peter goes, like, does a sad face, and I don't know what that was supposed to mean, so they might be hinting at more stuff that's still to come. But I found him very tragic, just with a little bit we got from him. Just watching his fake daughter die in his arms over and over on screen, like, good God, that was brutal.
But, like, if in the first place, both of them weren't supposed to be Spider-Man, and then he also goes in and replaces the Miguel hero from that other universe, like, it adds kind of an extra layer to an extra wrinkle, because it means that the first time around in his own universe, he might have been potentially, like, risking his own universe falling apart. But I don't fully know. Like I said, I've got questions about how some of that works. Like with the whole, and I love the canon idea.
I know, I really loved that. That made all the stuff that I think all three of us have issues with, like the Spider-Verse stuff, and it made like Miles cooler, because Miles is like one of a kind, and he's the only anomaly. And it like connected all that stuff. It was like
but also it's taking
stuff.
criticism that I and some other people have had about the way that character has been handled since Ultimate and making a story point out of it.
Yes.
Exactly.
This stuff is, like, these movies are the most I have ever liked Miles Morales, his supporting cast. Maybe not Genki, because he's not really a character in these movies as much. I assume because Ned is such a big character in the Tom Holland movies.
They even kind of alluded to that, didn't they?
Yeah, I think Miles Morales and his family dynamic is so relatable. I really loved in this movie. So we opened the film with them at like a parent-teacher conference, and like Miles's parents are talking to the teacher, and she like assumes that they're like an immigrant family because the mom speaks Spanish, and she's like, I'm from Puerto Rico, that's part of America, like, hello. Like, so, and then later on in the film, they kind of pay that off when Gwen shows up to the party with Miles, and they, because of the prejudice that they've experienced in their lives, they have like a prejudice towards her. They're like, oh, what is Miles doing being with a woman like her? And his mom is like, I doubt she even speaks Spanish. Like, as someone that has navigated an intercultural relationship, I found that stuff to be very real and relatable. And I think I did not expect this kind of a movie to go to those places where, like, the parents are being mildly racist and prejudiced towards Miles's girlfriend, and they overcome their mild prejudices very quickly, and they become better people for it, and it brings the family closer together. Like, man, I thought all that stuff was just phenomenal. These characters are way cooler than any other comic book story with them that I've ever read. Like, I really, really loved all that stuff.
And more three-dimensional than most live-action superhero movies.
Absolutely.
And we're not pandering to anybody, like, politically or otherwise with any of that, Dan, because no matter what like race or gender you are in these movies, you have flaws.
Yes, exactly. And the what defines the characters in this movie as good people is not like the fact that they have flaws, it's how they overcome them and become better people and learn. Like, every character in this film has an arc, which is not a given in a lot of the Marvel sludge that is pumped out of the Disney Corporation these days. You know, like Doctor Strange doesn't even have a character arc in his second movie, apparently, you know? So it's like, you know, this one balanced the ensemble so well. I loved the focus that we got to see here on Captain Stacy's character in this, because George Stacy is one of my favorite supporting characters in all of Spider-Man comics. So seeing him and this version of Gwen's relationship fleshed out, I thought was fascinating. And I loved that Gwen's dysfunctional relationship with her father is the thing that saved his life, ultimately, because he is not a police captain and he won't die because of the Canon stuff.
Which is wonderfully absurd.
This is like the most Spider-Man film I've seen in a long time. Like, it's all about like the interpersonal relations with the characters, and even when they're dysfunctional, like, there's something positive that comes out of them. Like, I was so impressed with all of the character writing in this. It's amazing. I loved it.
And what we've done in going back to a point I made right at the beginning, in continuing the Spider-Verse of it all, when I was kind of disappointed that we had to keep doing that, is we've fully integrated that concept in this Miles Morales' origin. And so now that we're past this movie, it doesn't feel retroactively like it could have been done any other way. Like, he is... and like Dan said, it's so old school Spider-Man. Like they get it. They get what makes a Spider-Man because he accidentally, actions and consequences. He tries to do the right thing, and actually, what's great is it's actually Peter Parker himself that creates the problem with the multiverse that we have. So even though Peter Parker is not any version of him is our main protagonist here, this kind of hit me like with a ton of bricks in the theater, Dan. I had not thought about this. The idea that if Peter had not saved Miles Morales and died, then you wouldn't have had the breakdown of the multiverse that you have that now Miguel O'Hara is having to deal with. So like some of it is in choices that Miles Morales, our protagonist himself made, and some of it is in what Peter Parker did in the first place. And that's all fascinating in why Miles wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man in the first place, because if he hadn't gotten bit and if he hadn't gotten saved and bit, then Peter Parker would still be alive and would just be continuing on his like foreseen, like planned out standard Spider-Man formula. It's so clever.
It is, and I think this is my prediction for the third film. I think the third film, taking place in a universe where there is no Spider-Man, the point of the film is going to be Miles Morales lacking the power and responsibility lesson and becoming the Prowler will also destroy the multiverse. So either way, if you don't have Miles Morales become Spider-Man, then the multiverse still, like, because of him being this evil villain, him and his uncle will destroy the multiverse in some fashion. Like, I think it'll be like Miles Morales becoming Spider-Man or not doesn't necessarily matter as much as Miguel O'Hara is making it out to be. Like, I think that's going to be like the fate that this character can't escape. I could be wrong, but I think that's where they're going, and I really like that if that's where we're headed. I think the cliffhanger of this movie is brilliant because it is the Spider-Man power and responsibility lesson, the horrible what if comic. What if Peter Parker never learned the lesson from Uncle Ben's death? But it's very different because Miles Morales is a different character. Like, Peter Parker would not become like a gang lord, like crime boss if Uncle Ben had not taught him that lesson.
No, he'd become the lizard and die.
Exactly. But Miles Morales like exists in this environment where like he has proximity to criminals that can corrupt his good nature and teach him the wrong lessons. Like I don't know, that stuff really hit me in a place where it's like these people understand why this character resonates with people and like why the kind of lesson that he learns and why it's so important to Spider-Man as a character. Like, you need the origin. I loved in this movie when they came right out and said, none of this is possible without Uncle Ben. I was like, MCU, go screw yourselves. These people know Spider-Man. They get it.
And they never said the stupid line.
Yes.
Never had to say the line.
Yes.
It's not there anywhere.
That is a seminal story for this character, and that's the reason why people like him in the first place. I loved it.
I have a question. What happened to the spider in Miles' universe?
That's the one that bit Miles in his universe.
Did we see that in the first one? What happened to it afterwards?
That's the one that Spot brought over. That's why he got bit.
Right, but what about... But there's a spider in every universe.
Right, there was already a Peter Parker that got bit.
It was already Spider-Man.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
So the idea is the 42 spider didn't exist in this universe in the first place. That guy didn't make that spider. That came from another universe.
Okay.
Which?
Well, okay. I just forgot about Peter Parker.
Yeah, and what you were saying, Cap, where you said it's not only Miles' decisions that cause all this, and Peter's decisions, but it's the Spot's decisions. The Spot, your favorite, is like the linchpin in this whole universe, and is Miles's arch nemesis.
And it's perfect because Miles becomes Spider-Man so, like, intrinsically linked to multiverse in the first place. Like, we made what, again, the three of us, and I don't mean to count you out, Jayson, but you probably didn't think of this, but the three of us were kind of leery of, oh my god, we're making the whole thing, because, like, Dan and I never liked the Spider-Verse idea in the first place, you know, going back with Slott.
I still think it's a stupid idea, even though these movies are great, you know?
Yeah, but they're making it not feel that way at all. And sure. I guess what I'm saying is having the concept itself be a consequence of those choices and be like a Parker Luck thing. It's just like freaking genius to me. I'm gonna have to now say a thing I never thought I would say, which is we actually have to give a ton of credit to Avi Arad. Which is nuts. But do you know about this, Dan?
No. What did he do for this film? I'm very excited to hear about
Avi Arad convinced Lord Miller to make Spot the main antagonist.
Really?
Yes. They had somebody else in mind. I don't know who, but originally he was not supposed to be the bad guy. And if it weren't for Avi Arad, the Spot would not be Miles Morales' arch nemesis, which is just correct. It's just right for this.
It's just correct.
Because because of his power. Because it's essentially a multiverse thing. It's right there.
In mind originally, I wonder who the bad guy was.
Me too. But
very interesting.
But good on you, Rod.
Who else
Avi
would,
Arad
like,
just continuing to save the film industry one film at a time.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't going to be anybody connected to Multiverse.
Madam Web.
Or it could have just, well, and she's going to get her own movie now, so probably not. But it could have been...
It could have just been anybody with a tech
any number of mad scientists. I was going to say like a Smythe or somebody.
Somebody with a... Yeah, all you needed was one of those wristband things, and he could have jumped through the universes too.
Yeah, it just needed to be somebody that was working at that laboratory and could have had a bagel thrown at them. Which is, I love that bit where Miles goes, "Look, I've thrown lots of things, lots of food at lots of different people." These movies are spot on with the spider quips, right?
Exactly. They're so and neither of the main characters are Peter Parker, but they're still giving flawless Spider-Man quips.
That's why Dan's saying it feels so much like an actual Spider-Man thing. It doesn't even matter that we're not looking at Peter Parker. They just know what that character is supposed to be like.
Yeah, I mean, like, I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but, like, one of the things that, like, retroactively as a trilogy, for me, when I go back and watch those movies, is he feels like he's giving kind of like a Marty McFly, like, happy-go-lucky performance in the movie, and there's none of the, like, tortured, like, this person has had people close to him be killed, like, undercurrent to his character, like, and he's using the humor as a way to deal with his anxiety. And when he's fighting people, like, Peter Parker is not in his everyday life like, "Hey guys," you know, like, that's not who he is. Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's portrayal of the character are a little bit closer. I think Andrew Garfield is the closest, but I like in these movies that we're allowed to have characters have real consequences to the things that they do, and it's not like, oh, you know, like some MacGuffin is going to fall into the hands of evil Purple Man. Like, it's like Miles Morales' father is going to be killed. You know, like, those are real consequences, and that's why Spider-Man is awesome, because they're real human consequences for the characters. And I don't know, like, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that whole thing with Miles's dad turns out. My prediction is he's gonna let him die, and he's gonna have to do it and, like, watch it, and they're gonna have, like, a final, like, moment with each other, and they're gonna cry and all that. It's gonna be really sad.
And Cap's gonna cry again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch the whole movie like that. I actually don't think that's where they're gonna go, Dan.
You don't
but
think so? Where do you think?
I'm conflicted. I don't know.
No, I mean, I'm totally willing to be wrong. Like, that's just where
I hope. I don't know what's going on in the next movie.
What throws me off and makes me think that can't be what they're gonna do is his whole super confident, "I'm gonna do this my own way" speech. where he's trying to prove to Miguel O'Hara, it's a real classic fate versus free will thing. He's trying to prove to Miguel O'Hara that even though he wants to legitimately be considered a real Spider-Man, we don't have to stick to the script anymore. And we can still save the multiverse, and it doesn't have to be the archetypes. And I think that there's some kind of meta commentary about superhero movies in there too, which I just want to put
as like the Black Spider-Man, of course, too. Like that's definitely going on there. I agree with you.
Which makes me think it has to be something different than the captain dies because he's the captain.
I think it will be different than that. I think it's not just because he's the captain. The reason why I think he's going to die and Miles is going to have to let him die is because Miles is very confident, but he's in all of that, but he's also a stupid kid that needs to be humbled.
That's true too.
And Miguel O'Hara is going to be more right than Miles thinks in my view. I don't think he's going to be totally right, but I think Miles Morales is going to be proven to be partially wrong.
No, I think that's true too, but I think it's possible that the dad still lives and something else happens. Yeah, but I think you're spot on with Miguel O'Hara because he's going to be redeemed in some way. He is not going to finish the next movie being totally thrown under the bus. There's no way they do that to him.
I agree.
They have too much reverence for that character while they're letting him go as dark as they are and having the other Spider people starting to kind of turn on him.
I think the exciting thing about him is in this third movie, I think he's going to be a true antagonist. He's not going to be a villain. He's going to be a person that is opposing what the hero is trying to accomplish, but for very good reasons, at least in his mind, and we may sympathize with them to some degree. I think that's how they're going to play it, which is very exciting. I mean, nuanced storytelling, you know?
Yes, he's wrong in that he's too emotionally driven and he's got too much of a vested interest in the whole thing, and so he doesn't have an unbiased perspective, but he has very much a point, and I found myself, especially on a second viewing, going, oh boy, I don't know if I'm not just 100% on his side sometimes.
Yeah,
the whole universe implodes if you mess things up. I mean, how could you argue with that? Like, he has video footage of his whole universe.
Yeah, when Miles says, or whoever it is, you know, I thought we were the good guys, and he says we are. I'm like, yeah, he's not totally crazy. Like he's
great line reading, though.
It is. He's
when
trying
he says
to preserve,
we are, and then he says it again to like convince himself and the room, and nobody responds. It's so good.
Yep.
Let me read these super chats, and then we'll
I got a lot here.
Then we'll get back. Oh, yeah, sorry, DJ, I keep forgetting that you're modding. Go right ahead. But I'm used to doing this alone. Go ahead, DJ. Thanks, buddy.
Sure. We got a bunch here. The next one was from T-Edge1, $2 super chat. He says, I liked that Spider-Punk looked like Miles Variant? G. Miles Variant? I don't know what that is supposed to say.
Is he trying to say he looked like a Miles Morales variant because they were both black?
I don't know. Maybe so. I will say I
don't think he looks at all like Miles. Yes, they're both black.
Yeah. I like Spider-Punk quite a bit in the movie. I thought he was wonderful.
He's great.
Performance was hysterical.
That's a look that I've never liked, and I was completely won over. Like as soon as he comes on screen, he was amazing in this movie.
And I love all the like funny British stuff that all the like American people don't get. Like, I think that's funny.
I love that he said it Scooby-Doo as a slang, and we got like a little comic blurb on the side explaining
I wanted twice as many editorial notes. I loved that they did that, and I wanted them to do more of it.
Because they were funny.
They were all funny, yeah.
Was there any of that in the first movie? I don't remember that.
A little bit, I think.
Remember.
I don't know if they did straight up editorial notes. There was a lot more text boxes, though.
Yes.
Like thoughts and stuff.
The style is a little bit different here, but I was really struck by the editor's notes. I was like, oh boy, more of this, please.
Well, we didn't even talk about that. That's one of the great things is we get at least two different styles. We get more, but the main two styles, Gwen has a completely different visual style. And
and that was
such a bold choice to just start the movie that way.
Yeah, and I was strapped in real hard because I was hoping that that's how they would open it, and then they did. That was a thing that I kind of called, because with the first movie I went, into the Spider-Verse, well, I mean, it's kind of people from the Spider-Verse coming to him, and then that's it. Like, with Gwen, you get one kind of fun little flashback sequence in a montage where you get to see her style a little bit. And I've read some of those comics, and I've always really loved that style, in contrast to Miles's universe. And I was like, oh, I want to go there. And then we get to go there for like 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they start there in the movie with the, like, drumming or whatever. I couldn't remember how that movie
Yeah, it's got kind of like a watercolor washed out, and it's like it interacts with the scene with her and her dad whenever she hugs him, like the pink spreads out. It's so cool.
and she goes on the bus and she keeps like changing between her and Spider-Gwen.
Did you notice how her opening monologue is like whiplash? It's like the real hard-edged drumming, like drum solo, and then you get to the end of it, and it just keeps going, and it like completely loses itself, and then she has to be snapped out of it. I'm like, oh, it's whiplash.
I really liked how the drumming with her character really played into it. Like, she kind of like uses that as a way to like unwind and unstress, and she keeps her Spider-Man costume hidden in there, like it's her own like personal thing, like she does like by herself, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I really like that.
Wait, the costume is in the drum kit?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I missed that.
The front of it off and puts the costume inside.
Yeah,
I missed that. That's cool.
Yeah, and it's so cool because that's the thing that Peter Parker doesn't have that both her and Miles have, is they're both musicians, and it plays such a big role because they're both artists. And
they're the same.
Kind of wish Peter had that now. Like that, I don't know. I feel like we could add that at some point. Like
you need Peter to play like the oboe or something.
Garfield made him a skateboarder. You can add little things here and there, the little hobbies.
That's true.
He paints miniatures.
I can't remember. Never mind. I couldn't remember because I had never actually seen like the Spidey show. I'd just seen bits and pieces, but I know there's some like music stuff, and I couldn't remember.
Oh, you're talking about that little kid show that Mikey watches?
If Peter
is that the one that has Spider-Man, Miles, and Spider-Gwen in it? Is that the
Spidey and his amazing friends, and they give Miles Morales his own name in that, and they call him Spin. And then
weird.
And I don't like that name, but
that's a terrible name.
It's bad, but I will at least give them. If he didn't become Spider-Man because Peter died, he should have his own moniker. He shouldn't just be Spider-Man. So I like that at least they gave him something. But they use Ghost Spider in that show, and I was actually surprised not to get Ghost Spider at all in this, because that name didn't exist when they started making Into the Spider-Verse. Once it comes out, we've already got that on the racks. Right. But now that it's been 5 years, I kind of thought we'd get at least an allusion to it. It's never brought up. She's still Spider-Woman.
Well, it makes sense in this universe because there's only one in each, and Miles will always be Spider-Man. She's just Spider-Woman for that universe. Like,
I honestly like that more. Like, I guess with Spider-Gwen as a self-contained idea, like, I think it makes more sense to call her Spider-Woman if Spider-Man doesn't exist in her universe. But obviously they do it because in Marvel Comics there's like 80 Spider-Women, so that's a way to distinguish her.
No, I'm totally with you, and I didn't want it to become her name, but I was surprised that there wasn't a line, some kind of reference to it.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised too. Yeah, good call.
Or like when you get the 300 Spider-Men and women, that there wasn't another Ghost Spider that is called Ghost Spider. Like, I thought maybe they'd do that.
Well, you kind of had Ghost Rider Spider with Jessica Drew in this, she was kind of cool.
Hey, now that we're back to cameos, may I geek out for just a second about a couple of things?
Sure, I'll say one more thing about
yeah.
Gwen's costume looks really awesome with green chucks on that she wore for the second half of the movie. I thought that was cool.
Yep.
She wears Hobie's chucks.
The visual style of her universe with like the watercolors and like I think it was like the blue, pink, and it's like that greenish color. Like that blend was so cool looking. Like their apartment looked like I don't know if you guys remember. I don't think you've read these comics, DJ, but I know you have, Cap, at some point. Like the David Mack Marvel Knights Daredevil stuff, where it's like that surrealist like watercolor painting stuff. Like it reminded me a lot of that visual style.
It reminded me of the Alias books. Alias looks like that.
He worked on those. So
okay,
yeah,
that's what I've seen.
And I don't know who initially wrote the Spider-Gwen comics, but that's what they look like. I mean, they nailed that look. It's exactly what that is. Dan, I think the best shot in that universe is when she is arguing with her father and he tries to arrest her, and you get a shot. There's all these cool backgrounds that with the watercolor are like melting. The paint itself is like coming off the walls, and there's this cool, like you said, surrealistic bit where it's her logo, it's the Spider-Gwen emblem behind her, and it's melting.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite shots in the whole movie.
Oh, it's incredible.
Every time I watch one of these, I'm like, I don't want live action superhero movies anymore, man. You can do so much more.
That's my whole point. And that's why I had an almost spiritual experience with the first movie, even though I don't think it's as good as a lot of people do. Like, I've said this before, but I put it in my top 10 of the decade, and I still don't think it's like it's like Second Coming of Christ, like some people said. Like, I see it show up a lot on lists of like best superhero movie ever made, and I'm not there with it, but I think at least right now, and maybe I'm on a high, I think I like this better. I think it's my favorite Spider-Man movie right now. Right now, that could change. That's how I feel about it. Right? I was gonna say that when I did my sign flip, but
with that.
I think it's my. Look, dude, you don't care enough about these two people, okay?
Well, the problem is
when you nail this, and I care about your characters, and you do cool meta commentary, like on the level of Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, all bets are off with me.
The problem is I'm the biggest Amazing Spider-Man fan in the world.
Oh, that's true. You do really like that movie.
Good man.
And
that movie's great.
I think for sure this has potential of becoming my favorite superhero trilogy if they nail the third one.
Yep.
Me too, man. And one of the things that, if you were to write down the plot details on a piece of paper of this for me, I'd be like, this sounds terrible. It's Spider-Verse stuff, and then Peter Parker doesn't really show up until the third act, and he just runs around being goofy with a baby. I'm like, oh, that's all dumb.
That's the part I
didn't
like.
Even care. I was like, I didn't miss him. And I'm the biggest Peter Parker fan in the world. I was very surprised to not miss him as much as I thought I would.
Same here. But if
he's scratching all the other itches for you.
Exactly.
But if he's not going to be a major player, like I said, I love that a choice he made is what got this whole thing started. Mm-hmm. I don't like him taking his baby into danger. I'm sorry, I don't like it.
Oh, that's fair.
I have a tough time with that. And it works out because she's fine, and so as long as she's not ever actually in any danger, it's very easy to just ignore that we're doing that and enjoy the cute baby. And every time she puts her mask down, it's adorable. I love what they're doing with baby Mayday Parker, but it is the most cartoony thing in an otherwise not very cartoony movie, and much less so than the first film. I felt like with the first movie, I said exactly what DJ did when I reviewed it. Why do we even need to put these things in live action anymore? I had to keep reminding myself that I was looking at an animated thing, even though it's so stylized and looks right off the page from a comic book. I think this is an important point to bring up. I think that a lot of the reason that some people are resisting the runtime is because of expectations for animation. And you can't look at it like an animated movie. It's a live action film that they're not making an animation, except when you do goofy crap like mid-30 something Peter Parker is carrying around his baby with him. You'd never do that in a live action movie. But most of the rest, and of course,
that would be hilarious.
There's stuff that feels more cartoony because it's animated. I was gonna. This is one of the things I wanted to geek out about. You got the big spider T-Rex and stuff. Yay! It was super fun to get to see that. Peter Park car. Yeah,
that was really funny.
It's great. It's great.
There's definitely things that are more cartoony. Just because it's an animation, you've got Miles's dad bouncing off walls and flying around and hitting the concrete really hard because it's animated. He obviously wouldn't be doing that if it was live action. He's just a human being. But
the attitude of it, it not
that stuff.
It's not aimed at children in the way that people that are saying, 2 hours and 12 minutes is so long.
No, I can totally see where you're coming from, like with the Peter Parker thing. The tone was consistent enough to me that it didn't bother me, but like I wasn't thinking about it too hard, like, but I could see where you're coming from. Like, that makes sense.
It's funky that he would do it, and then they punctuate it at the end with Mary Jane, who's like, "Oh, you didn't take our baby out, did you?" And he's like, "No, I wouldn't do that." And I'm like, I don't know. You seem like kind of an a-hole with this to me.
I strangely, and I do have problems with kids in danger, but I liked it because I felt like it was a character thing. I don't think he was doing it because he's being reckless. I think he just had separation anxiety. He wasn't able to stay away from his kid, and he needed to keep her protected at all times with him.
And I also think the one thing about her being there is the moment where he tells Miles the reason why he had a kid with Mary Jane is because of him. Like, I think it was a much more effective scene, like Miles having met her and like
with the baby.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not wrong about all of that. And it's emotional manipulative in exactly the right way.
Yeah, no, but I totally see where you're coming from. It's not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination. It just didn't bother me as much as... just
lucky that 2099 isn't more psychotic than he is. When he
I love
gets
that
mad
2099 puts up with him, kind of. As brooding as he is, he still puts up with Hobie and Peter.
He has that great line where he says, where Peter's like, oh, I don't want to do that job, and he's like, no, I wasn't gonna have you do it anyway. I've had exactly the right amount of you.
Yeah, and then when he's talking to Hobie's over in the corner. He's like, I was just gonna ignore you the whole time.
The best part about Hobie is that he's not this just because we're kind of satirizing what he's doing to some degree too. Like, that's also a little tongue-in-cheek in his rebellion, F the system.
Yeah, he's anti-everything
attitude. He's anti-everything. He's too cool for every school. But then he gets a little bit of pathos, and he's and he's like wonderfully what's the word I'm looking for? He has some real compassion. The best part with him is when he quits, which I didn't catch until the second viewing.
Wait, does he?
But yeah, he goes. By the way, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And then later on, you get the plot point where he's given Gwen the interdimensional wristband.
Actually, no. I picked up on this time. He takes his off when he quits and throws it on the ground. The one that he gives Gwen is one that he made. Because remember, there's the line earlier where he just tells Miles,
I got that.
Why don't you just make your own? And then he goes and does it.
Yeah.
He probably already had done it at the time. But there's so many things, like so many lines when people are... I love... One other great thing about this movie is people just talk to each other like they would talk to each other. There's no stupid thing where, like, once you get to a certain point of the movie, because the audience knows stuff, then everyone starts talking like that. Everyone talks like that the whole time. So if you watch it again, you know what everyone's talking about. And... you pick up on so many more conversations.
You're right. The canon term comes up 10 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
It's there very early.
It comes up a bunch, and then you've got that line where when they first meet Gwen, she's like, what about her? And Miles is like, and he's like, no. She's like, why not? And he's like, you know why. And it's because she's linked to Miles, and they can't bring them on. And there's so much stuff like that.
And the mystery of why Miles isn't allowed in the Spider Club is so compelling, because the whole movie you're like, how? But how come? Why? And it gets so much worse when you find out that every Spider-Man and almost literally his dog is a part of this thing. And then, but why not Miles? And why did Miguel even resist bringing Gwen on board?
Yeah.
And then when you find that out, it's a very satisfying kind of gut punch.
Yeah, because you think that Gwen is telling the truth, that it's a small club, but it's not. She's just making that up to tell Miles.
And even when you get to that, you still can't figure out. But like, I don't know that anybody would call that like the real reason he's not allowed on board, and that it's because he's Miguel says the original anomaly.
Yeah, and it's all in the first movie, but it makes perfect sense when you know, but it's so uncallable.
That's why it feels like there was always more story to tell, but I didn't get that. That, like, this is just a natural part two that had to come at some point, but I didn't know.
It's the perfect way to make a sequel.
It's the
Make it
least
seem
amount
like
of
it was the whole way.
sequelitis you get in a thing like this, and there's no beat for beat first plot at all. Like it's a completely different kind of story.
A lot of people walking out of this movie have compared it to The Empire Strikes Back, and I think the comparison is apt in exactly what you described, in that, like, you watch the first Star Wars movie, you don't really need a sequel to it.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And then you watch the second one, you're like, oh, of course we need to take the story further in this direction. And, you know, like, it feels exactly like that to me in Empire in that way. And I really appreciate that.
But
fantastic.
it's also like Empire in that I didn't think of that at all, Dan. Mm-hmm. The other way it's like Empire is the big revelation at the end, because both you are the original anomaly, and in the universe that the 42 Spider came from, you are the bad guy. Is his Luke, I am your father?
Yes. Yeah. And then you even, I mean, it ends on even a grimmer cliffhanger almost in The Empire Strikes Back. Like, Luke Skywalker didn't have to come face to face with, like, Sith Lord Luke at the end of Empire, you know? That's some crazy stuff.
Yeah, well, and now that we're there again, because I meant to ask you, or I meant to mention this earlier, because you had a whole read on where you thought the third movie was going to go with that.
Yeah.
And I have two different potential reads on the ending, and I'm so curious to see where they decide to go with it, because I think either of these things is possible. So again, you have a fate versus free will question, and the big question is, what would have happened in Miles's universe if he hadn't been bitten by the spider? And the Prowler version of him means one of two possible things, I think. Tell me if I'm off somewhere on this. It either means that he was destined to be a villain, and because he got bit by the spider, he didn't become a villain. Or it means that I forget what my second bit with that was.
I think there's truth in what you're saying.
Sorry, help me out, because we've been talking about so many different things. I'm stuck right now.
I was just gonna say, I think there's truth in what you're saying about the first one, in that, like, I think without Peter Parker as a role model, like, Uncle Aaron is the guy, you know?
Yeah. Why wouldn't he look up to his Uncle Aaron?
Exactly. So, you know, without the power and responsibility lesson that is, you know, taught him by Peter Parker's death, he's going to become a criminal, just like the second most important male role model in his life, you know.
And it's not just because the spider bit him, it's because he had that lesson with Peter for that time, and because his uncle died. All of that all made him.
This is what I meant to say. Yeah. Was in the other universe, if the spider didn't bite Miles, was it supposed to bite Miles, or was it supposed to bite somebody else? So that suggests that, like, Miles could be quote unquote destined to either be the Prowler, but he didn't become what he was supposed to. He actually became the good guy, or he was destined to become Spider-Man in that universe and didn't, because the spider went over there and got the other Miles. You see what I'm saying? I don't know which it is.
But I think we can find out in the third one, though.
Yeah.
What if Miles Morales Spider-Man is the thing that inspires Prowler Miles Morales to become Miles Morales Spider-Man? Miles inspires himself from another universe to become Spider-Man.
Oh. He's got a lot of fires to put out.
I know.
Yeah, he's like the Batman of the Spider-Man of that universe. Like, that's like Gotham City. It's just
that was the
dumpster fire.
That was the big question I had, was like, oh, without a Spider-Man here, it looks like a dystopia in the background. It's got fires everywhere. There's all this crime, and so I wasn't sure if the idea was supposed to be that Miles was gonna be always a villain in that universe, but if somebody, Peter Parker or whoever, got bit by the spider, he would have gotten taken out already. Or if he becomes the Prowler because he didn't become Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, one of the things that I'm very interested in with the ending too is, like, I came to love Miles Morales' mom over the course of the two movies, and then, like, I don't know if she's with Uncle Aaron romantically at the end, and if she is, that
looks
makes me
like
very afraid
she
for
might
her.
be. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm like, no. don't do it. That guy's not a good person.
Yeah, but it's her from another universe, so who cares? I mean,
no, I know, but I don't know. Just like she's similar enough to the character from the other universe that I was like, I was just like, I don't want to see this lady get treated poorly,
Dan, as a Star Trek fan, I loved how mirror universe that whole thing was.
Yeah, no, this stuff was great.
I loved the movie's so far ahead of you, like at every step. Like you think you're smart. Like when she says, "Who's Spider-Man?" and you're like, "Come on, movie! You expect me to believe that his mom doesn't know who Spider-Man is?"
My audience cracked up both times. Didn't realize that it wasn't a joke. That was a place where
I thought it was a joke too. Yeah.
That was a place where it looked like it was undercutting it, and it wasn't. Yep. That is a terrifying, dramatic beat. You just don't know it yet.
I know. I was like, "Come on, movie! You're gonna try to." You want me to believe that she is so out of touch she doesn't even know who Spider-Man is, and then, nope, you're an idiot.
One of the things that I loved about that, after they revealed what was going on, that Miles was the Prowler and all that I loved about the visual style that they chose for the universe without Spider-Man is that it's all blacks and purples, like the Prowler costume.
Yep.
So, when you come in, it's just it feels a little off. It's like you're in, this dark... Miles Morales' apartment is dark and dingy for some reason. You're like, oh, this is kind of weird. And then you realize, oh no, they're actually doing a color palette tint reveal thing.
Yeah, and they're so confident that the first thing they do is make the comment out about his hair. So if you're thinking, you'll know. But they're so cocky that they're like, you're still not gonna know what I'm doing. I'm gonna make a blatant comment about his hair right in front of you, and you're gonna feel like an idiot.
Yep.
It's so good.
No, it was fantastic.
No, it's classic mirror universe stuff.
Yep.
Because it's everybody's going to be talking to Captain Kirk like he's a dictator, but he doesn't know what anybody's talking about.
No, exactly.
I'll be right back.
Okay, we'll see you in a little bit.
We've talked too long.
Dan, how did you feel? And he never comes back. Dan, how did you feel?
We're Spider-Man nerds, just boring
nerds.
Well, and now that you said that, DJ, this is another point I wanted to make where I was so enamored with this that it made me remember that I used to be a Spider-Man fan. I just haven't been excited about Spider-Man in so long. I don't really go back to a lot of Spider-Man stuff anymore. It's kind of the same thing. Austin and I just did a GNN on this. It's kind of the same thing that I have with Star Trek, where Star Trek's been bad for so long, and there's still fan base that somehow accepts that stuff. That I can't even get excited to go back to the stuff I like sometimes. Very often, and I'm having that with Spider-Man, and this made me go, "Oh, that's right. I like Spider-Man." And first viewing, I felt like such a prude because I was suddenly geeking out about the Spot in 2099, and I went, wait a minute, I should have been excited about this movie. Why wasn't I more stoked to go to this? And I felt kind of a jerk because I was like, oh, they made this for 12-year-old me is kicking me in the teeth while I'm watching this movie going, this is our favorite thing, you jackass. Why aren't you excited? And then when I saw it a second time, then it became maybe my favorite Spider-Man movie. I actually did not walk out first time thinking that because I was so just weirded out by the experience I had where it made me feel something again and I had to find my humanity watching it.
It will probably never dethrone some of the live action Peter Parker Spider-Man movies for me in terms of raw enjoyment, but this may be the technically best written of them by a long
and even
shot.
Over the first one.
It's got to be the best script.
And a lot of people aren't going to agree with us.
I don't know
on
if it'll
this.
top the first Spider-Verse for me, but yeah, the script is crazy.
And see, it does for me. And with what Jayson was talking about in being in some of the dramatic stuff going on too long, I had that first time out. My worst thing, I actually thought of this walking out. I was like, when we sit down and talk about this, and if I hadn't seen it again, this would have been. My worst thing is going to be too many speeches. It's going to be just too many scenes with somebody laying all their emotions on the table. And when I saw it a second time, that all felt warranted.
Well, and it goes into something I wanted to mention because
it's because of the dual protagonist thing, right? Sorry, DJ. It's because the first time around, it's not Gwen's story, so it's just not as necessary to have all those speeches. But the problem is you're doing a paralleling story, like we said earlier, with the two father-children stories, that like both of the fathers and both of the kids have to lay out their emotions on the table the way they do. So yeah, it's warranted, and it's not melodramatically written. Agreed. So it works.
Well, and another reason that it works is because this is a big event. A lot of stuff is going on, and this nails another huge problem with all the other Spider-Man movies. Is
oh, no problem, Dan. Everybody can read that on the screen.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. We'll try to wrap up as quickly as we've still got some
like,
super chats and stuff. So
I can just dip out. It's not a big deal. I don't want to poop on the parade. If you will.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. We always have to start these so late, Dan.
Oh
yeah, sorry about that. I'm actually in Cap's time zone today for once.
Nice.
But another thing that just nails that pretty much every other Spider-Man movie is like Spider-Man. Everyone says Spider-Man should be a TV show because it's more like episode. It's more serialized.
Yeah.
Serialized. And all we get in the big movies is like this big thing happens and then nothing happens for 2 years in between movies and then this big thing happens. Here, stuff has been happening this whole time with Miles and it feels really natural. But this is where we need to tell the movie because this is where the big story happens. Like there were stories happening and you can see the progression in the characters and even in his, like he has rogues gallery and stuff, but this is where everything's culminating and coming to a head. And that's why all those speeches are necessary because he's dealing with his dad and his mom and she's dealing with her dad. And it's just a lot of stuff coming together.
Yeah. And the inciting incident is directly tied to the events of the first movie. So it's just appropriate to tell it here. It doesn't mean that you couldn't do a bunch of little side stories somewhere else if you had the if you had the means, if you wanted to do comics or a TV show or whatever. Like there's other adventures he's had, but this isn't about the side adventures. This is about the multiverse. So this will be like the Miles Morales multiverse trilogy, where it's just about the stuff that has to do with the multiverse. Yeah,
no, I'm gonna be very interested to see like how this franchise, like, beyond Lord and Miller, like whether they try to do like spin-off movies in the individual universes and stuff, because if they're done well, I mean, that would be awesome.
Yeah, they could be printing money, and Sony's kind of dragging their feet on this universe.
Yeah, I mean, why are we investing money in the Kraven the Hunter movie when we can make good Spider-Man films? Do it.
Well, and they may either abandon that stuff or just put them out less often after the success of this, because it's so weird, the way they announced like a bazillion projects, none of them ever came to fruition, and now it's making the kind of money they were sort of pretending like it made the first time around.
Yeah.
It's really weird. DJ, let's get back to super chats and we'll knock out as much as we can before Dan just hangs up.
I'm gonna have to head out right now.
Okay, no problem.
But it was great talking to you guys, and thank you everyone for checking out our take on the movie. We appreciate you all very much.
Thanks for being
I'm
here.
so glad you loved it, Dan.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it too. It's so good to hear. Like, it's good to be excited about Spider-Man things. Between this and the Spider-Man 2 video game, like, there's some good stuff coming for like, once in a blue moon, which is cool.
I'm sad because I don't know when I'm ever going to be able to play that, because that game looks great, but I'm not going to pay $500 to play it. So.
Oh man, dude, I'm so excited. The symbiote suit footage they showed looks.
I know. It looks really good.
It looks like my favorite thing. All right, so I'll hang up now so I don't start rambling about that.
Thanks, Dan.
See you
later,
everyone.
buddy. Bye.
Oh my gosh.
I gotta fix this. Hold on, everybody.
I've kicked myself into myself.
Well, I had no. Yeah, he's a Rorschach inkblot test. Like, what do you see? Give me back my face. Anyway,
The spot was so great, and we didn't even talk about him very much. Besides, we talked about his like thematically, but we didn't talk about the performance or the visuals or anything.
So what's amazing about the way the spot is handled is he's introduced as a complete joke, like you might expect, and he actually is very funny, and he's this this great comic relief character, and then he gets really scary.
Oh, he's Mark Wade's spot.
It's sort of the inverse of what we do with Spider-Punk, where like he comes out and he's he's the satirical joke, but then you care about him and he's like a person. And with Spot, it's like he's this jokey guy who's just trying to find a way. Like, he's also weirdly sympathetic when he's a joke. Because
he's just a loser, yeah.
He's just, well, but also, you know, he's got kind of the mutant problem where it's like, I can't live a regular life and nobody accepts me the way I am, and my family has kind of disowned me, and all I can do is go knock over, you know, ATMs, and then but he's got this huge vengeance motive, which is typical, but it works for him. Like, you get why he's like that, and then he becomes this almost like, you know, demon godlike kind of character, and so he's scarier when he becomes more two-dimensional.
Yeah,
and that works.
His art style represents that too. He's kind of like an anime villain when he starts getting all like crazy spirally at the end.
That's true.
And obviously the metaphor where he gets more and more black as he gets more and more, you know, evil and powerful, because he starts out completely white and then he gets kind of a black midsection.
I was going to say, there's an inherent black and white thing to his costume, but I didn't really break it down like that, so that's a really good call.
Yeah, I never thought the Spot would be the coolest villain ever, and they nailed it, man. This movie's crazy.
He's scary in the way that I'm hoping to eventually see a Molecule Man, because with Fantastic Four, because he's been, you know, made to be kind of a joke in things, and then we did a story with him in, I want to say it was Ultimate Squared, or maybe it was Secret Wars, maybe it was both, I can't remember. I'm going to like 8-year-old memories right now, where they just made him horrifying, and I was like, oh boy, I hope someday we'll do that in the movies, and we just did that with the Spot. And everybody always points to the Mark Waid Spot in his Daredevil run, where he's really creepy toward the beginning. This managed to totally blend the comedic Spot with the more horrific Spot.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of needed that after being in Gwen's universe for the first 15 minutes. You needed to get back into the fun comic relief stuff.
Well, and I also like that your audience that hasn't been looking at trailers or merchandise and stuff won't even know, and even if they have, like, they're not going to know what the Spot is. And so they're buying the villain of the week business, where he's introduced like we introduce, you know, like the Rhino at the beginning of Amazing Spider-Man 2, or you know one of those villains that's not an important villain that just shows up and to say there's other villains in this universe. That's what he looks like.
Yeah.
Initially.
And we do that again here, like on the train. I don't even know who that is. There's like a hedgehog Wolverine-looking guy that he fights for 2 seconds.
I don't know who that was either.
I don't know who that is. All right, should we knock out these super chats?
Yeah, I don't know when and if Jason's coming back, but you and I can pull the weight here. Go ahead. Guys,
we're dropping like flies.
Thanks for your patience tonight. These always go long. I should have expected somebody would have to deck out, but thanks for your patience. If you've left a super chat, we will get to all of them. And if you already had to leave, I hope you came back later on to hear us talk about your super chat. Go ahead, DJ.
All right, so you want to be an Imagineer, $10.
Thanks, man.
I'm fairly conflicted. The animation is leaps and bounds better than part 1, but due to the nature of the cliffhanger, feels very incomplete as a story arc. Not nearly enough time for the ensemble.
I think that's fine because, I mean, not in the title, but in advertising and stuff, it was pretty upfront about being part 1 of a 2-part piece. So yes, there are story arcs that are not complete yet. I don't think that's a problem. I do wish that the second part could come out sooner. We're not going to get it until March of next year. 9 months seems like a real long wait for this kind of thing. I wish it was more like 4 or 6. But I do appreciate that there are some wrap-ups to at least some relationships and stuff. Like, it wouldn't have been as satisfying, for example, if Gwen and her father hadn't reconciled already. I appreciate that that's happened. So I mean, there are still character arcs that are not completely done, but it feels enough of a piece because we wrapped up some stuff, but obviously not everything, because when you parallel Gwen and Miles, she's had her wrap up with her father, but Miles has not had that resolution with his parents yet.
Yeah. Yeah, but I agree with you. I think it was enough for this film, especially if the third movie really nails that. But I understand your hang up with that. I've heard some people say that it feels like kind of half of a movie, even though I don't have that complaint.
But I also don't care if it is half of a movie, you know, like that's fine. It can be that. It is amusing to me that they're doing the same thing because it's in animation, that they're doing the same thing, DJ, that the DC direct-to-video movies have done with Dark Knight Returns and Hush and stuff like that, where because they're too short, they had to take one story and split it into two movies. But this is not short. This is 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it's still doing that.
Well, I love that. That's another great thing about the movie is I love that it's able to take its time. There's moments where we breathe. There's long pauses. There's scenes that just end, and not every scene has to end with a joke. And I don't know. It's just very deliberately paced.
You're just allowed to live with it. And I also really like the way it blindsides you with the cliffhanger. Like I said, the advertising was somewhat upfront with that if you were paying attention. And I know some people were really disappointed not getting the rest of the story, but that's because they were engaged. It's because they were liking it.
It didn't feel like 2 hours. It was flying by.
You didn't, and I know they're different things, and it's on a different scale, which is wonderful, but you didn't think it was possible for a superhero movie, and especially a Marvel thing, to hit people with the blip thing again, but it did it.
Yeah.
Because most everybody in both of the viewings that I saw had no idea that they were going to have to wait for what feels like a cliffhanger on the level of Best of Both Worlds or something.
Yeah, that's a good groan to get in the theater. When people go, "Ah, that's good." That's not like, "Oh, I'm upset." That's like, "I want more." Like right now, give it to me. And I'm glad that you said it was only 9 months because as long as it's not like 5 years again, like this last one.
The only mistake I think they made is with how that was handled is when you get the initial major credits and then it says Miles Morales will return in Beyond the Spider-Verse, and I love the reveal of that title. If you didn't already know about it, I somehow missed that they were giving it another title, so that was cool for me. But when they go Miles Morales will return, even if they end up having to put it back at all, I still would have taken the risk and said March 29, 2024, or whatever it is, or at least the year. I would have said 2024, because I heard people around me go, just what you said, are we going to have to wait another 5 years? Like, I heard people say that. It probably should have promised it won't be 5 years.
Yeah. I wonder if they were just nervous because the last one got put off another year. I imagine that was like animation stuff, and I like that they're taking their time and not rushing things and making it look as good as it can. So I wonder if they were just scared to commit.
Well, and I could be wrong about that, because if that didn't work out for them, that could have hurt them a little bit, but on the back end. And also there's the question of how far along are they, because 9 months, they have to be pretty darn far, but there is a little bit of that, is the writer's strike going to hurt this in any way, kind of question. I'm going to assume not. I'm going to assume that's all completely done and they're hip deep in animation right now. But what if they still have to, what if they had bits they needed to rewrite? What if it was like this? This had reshoots. Like, what if they needed to do that for some reason that would actually, help the film, and they can't? I don't know. It's so weird to see reshoots, though, for animation.
Yeah, and I don't know what that was. I wonder how much of that was the Donald Glover stuff and the Venom gas station stuff.
I bet it was. And I hated that stuff, by the way.
I did not like it. And it was really long. Both of those were like we were in the convenience store for a really long time, and he's like, it's like crazy things happen in your universe all the time. I'm like, okay, we get it.
Well, and did you have the question I did? And I'll ask you this too, Jayson, now that you're back.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself wondering, and obviously they weren't going to shoot this, but you can't help but visually wonder why it's not there just for the sake of the narrative, right? You're gonna have live action cameos in your animated movie where everything Spider-Man that has ever mattered, comic, on screen, cartoon, live action, whatever, all counts in this multiverse. But then you have 300 Spider-Mans that are all working at this multiversal department thing together, and they even have captured live-action bad guys, but not one live-action Spider-Man is there. So, like, where's Tobey Maguire? Where are those guys?
I think I did see the Amazing Suit.
Yeah,
there.
the Amazing Suit is there.
Oh, I missed that.
But
Okay.
and
I mean,
Which I would have liked much better. Just if you're gonna reference those movies, just animate them. Like you don't have to actually pull footage. Like you can still reference that incarnation, but everything else is animated. It just looks weird.
You don't have to tie it all in. Like, why do you have to do that?
I agree with you, but I know a lot of people are gonna love it.
Yeah, and again, I'm conflicted because I don't mind that they did the live action stuff with the archival footage, but then at the same time, I can't help but wonder why weren't any of them there. Well, that's kind of weird. Oh, where was MTV Spider-Man?
What's that?
There was a
Patrick
short-lived
Harris.
series on MTV that was like a really early CG, and I'll show it to you because it's both good and embarrassing.
Oh, wow.
I will
Some
give
of that animation.
Since we're talking about superficial stuff again, and
Yeah,
I will
sure.
give the most obscure thing I noticed, which was in the Spider-Man PS1 game. There is a training mode where you can go and villains pop up on these like cardboard cutouts, and you shoot them with webs, and the villains that are coming up as like cards when the villains are sliding through are as like that same artwork. It was crazy.
That's
Could not
really
believe
weird.
When the cards come up and it's like Doc Ock and someone else, and it looks just like those cards in that training mode on the PS1 game. I was like, that's crazy.
You know, the big thing...
Austin will love that. I guess I'll never see
He'll
it,
never
but-
see this movie. Yeah. the big thing that this had me wanting to do, DJ, because suddenly I'm in a Spider-Man mood, which I didn't think you could do with me anymore. Like I haven't really cared about. Like, Spider-Man has been work for me for like several years. You know, like sometimes a good movie will come out, like Homecoming I like, and whatever. But like for the most part, I'm just not a big Spider-Man guy anymore. And this reminded me, oh yeah, that's right, I like Spider-Man. I want to go back to Shattered Dimensions. That was the big thing I wanted to do when I finished this.
Oh, you should. It's a great game.
Oh, DJ, I also got the bobblehead for $20.99.
Oh, that's awesome.
I did get him, the pop bobblehead. And I wasn't going to get the Spot because I don't like his design until I see the movie. Like, I don't think it translates great to merchandise. And I don't and besides the pop, I don't think 29 does either. I don't like his broad shoulders and like his big wide broad shoulders. In the movie it looks great. You make it an action figure and I'm like, that's not $29.99. That looks stupid.
Yeah, the toys, I didn't like that. They did Marvel Legends, but they exaggerated them even more so than they are in the movie. I don't know why. They made him like Johnny Bravo size.
It doesn't look good.
Yeah, but I like how Spot's design changes through the movie, where he's like this schlubby, like beer gut, lanky guy. But as he gets more powerful, he's still lanky, but he starts to get more top heavy. And
I think we'll get cooler figures for him for the sequel, so I might hold off. Like I'll get the pop maybe, but I might hold off on anything else because all I'm seeing action figure wise and stuff is the Spot with the Spot in the middle of his face, which I don't like. But it works great in the movie, and then it starts changing, and that's cool. But why is all the merchandise just schlubby Spot for the first 5 minutes when he's breaking into the ATM?
The ATM machine.
Like the ATM machine, because Spot's supposed to have spots all over his face.
Yeah, I like their design for the movie, but yeah, that is actually one thing I did get spoiled for me because I did see an action figure at Target of the Spot. I was like, oh, the Spot's in that. Dang it, I wish I didn't know that. But he comes in so early in the movie, it's not a big deal.
Oh, how did you feel about Spider-Man India?
How did you feel about Spider-Man India?
That's another Spider-Man that I don't know from Adam and wasn't really excited about, but I thought it was fine. It was different. I feel like they needed some different characterizations.
I think that might have come from the second Spider-Verse event in the comics. I don't remember because I didn't read that.
I know that's a thing.
That stuff got so super gimmicky. I mean, it wasn't the first place that I was kind of done with it.
But I didn't know anything about it.
I only know him from like the mobile Spider-Man game, but yeah, he was fun. We have a super chat about him later. So
you know who he reminded me of? He reminded me of the super rich Iron Spider from the last episode of the 90s animated series.
Yeah.
in his attitude about being a Spider-Man. Nothing bad has ever happened to him. He doesn't expect that he'll ever have to work hard at anything. And then I love the plot point with that. And I saw this one I saw coming, but it was really effective, where Miles saves his Uncle Ben, or no, his Captain Stacy, I guess. And then he is never going to have that, so his universe is going to destabilize. I actually almost want to check back in on him later and see what any of that does to him. Like, if they save his universe, what would he be like when he goes through the Spider-Man formula? This was also a big thing that I wanted to talk to Dan about, and I wish I had gotten to it before he left, because I was about to, and then we got to something else, and I never remembered to go back. So I'm like, I wish I'd done that. I wanted to go through... But DJ, you know your Spider-Man well enough. Maybe you can help me do this. I want to go through just real briefly, and the folks in the comments they throw out ideas too. Yeah. What are other events? What are other major Spider-Man things that you think are part of the canon? Like the Captain dying, and that whole thing is, I think, by the way, like, a little forced is an idea, but I like it a lot. The idea that happens with every single one of them, and it's so obscure, like, a captain has to die. Okay, like, we're kind of making fun of it at the same time as we're making a plot point, and it's fun, but it's...
Yeah. Well, it's always either their dad or their girlfriend's dad, so at least there's some rhyme and reason to it.
But I love the idea that, if he doesn't become a captain...
I'm not sold on that. I think that might have been her initial reaction, like, "Oh, you're safe." I think he could still die in the third movie.
Yeah, I think anything is possible.
I don't think that was saying for sure that he was safe. I think that was like her having some hope.
Well, and I don't mean to overread it, but another big question I had was, is that too influenced by events with the multiverse? Hear me out. So what we're told, and it's a grain of salt because Miguel O'Hara could be wrong about some of this too, but what we're told is, if the Spider-Man formula, if the canon isn't adhered to, and the only reason it wouldn't be is because of influence from other dimensions encroaching. If that never happens, the Captain always dies, the Uncle Ben always dies, everything that's supposed to happen with Spider-Man always happens, right? Mm-hmm. We even get some shots from various Spider-Man things of other, where it clues you into a couple of the others, but I was wondering if we had any other ideas of what some of them might be. Like, did you see the shot of like Spider-Man No More with the costume of the trash can
with Hobie? Yeah,
that happens every time, but you get the classic comic cover with it too. Like that apparently is part of the canon. That always has to happen. Okay, so
is there a Flash Gordon character?
I don't know what that means.
Like, is there
Flash Gordon? Oh, you mean Flash Thompson?
Flash Thompson.
Flash Gordon's a different thing.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I don't think they had an allusion to Flash with that whole thing. Maybe they did. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But yes, maybe he has to be bullied.
Yeah.
As a kid, maybe that's a thing. But anyway, sorry. Let me make this point real quick, and then we can go back to that whole thing. Apologies for jumping around, but I wanted to make sure to mention this because I forgot about it. DJ, when her father, when Gwen's father says, "I just decided to quit the Force halfway through your speech," that happens, and it's a little butterfly effect, but that happens because of events that she's dealt with within the rest of the multiverse, and she comes back and she has this speech to her father, and through that speech, he decides to not be a captain anymore, which technically is the multiverse encroaching on their dimension. Ergo, if he's not a captain now, does her universe destabilize? Because that wouldn't have happened if she never left.
That's true. And if he doesn't die, I think he still has to die.
But also, let me compare it to Miles. If Miles was never supposed to be Spider-Man, and it's because of multiversal things encroaching on it that he became Spider-Man, 2 questions. First of all, why is he held down by Canon at all? And I think that's a question that he's asking himself too, where he says, I'm going to go my own way. But we're told that his father, because he's a captain, is definitely going to die in 2 days because that fulfills the canon. But he was never supposed to be Spider-Man, so why is there any canon? And then the question is, why doesn't the 42 universe, why doesn't it destabilize when no Spider-Man ever happens? Because it was supposed to get a Spider-Man, but it didn't. So your captain dying, or your captain supposed to die doesn't die, is enough to completely destabilize a universe. That almost happens with India. So we know this. But you can take the spider away from 42, and nobody there ever becomes Spider-Man. You just have trash fires everywhere, and the universe does not destabilize. I'm a little confused. Love the movie. Do not totally get all of that mythology.
Yeah, so maybe we're getting to the third movie where Miguel is wrong, and there's something else going on.
Yeah, he's gotta be, right? Or am I thinking this out too hard? Am I overthinking it?
I don't know. I feel like we need to do a commentary on this right now. I need to go watch it a third time.
We need to both go to different respective movie theaters and bring recording equipment that we're not allowed to have in the theater together. Do a live show.
Yeah, do a Mystery Science Theater.
Thank you for letting me break that down.
No, thank you for doing that, because that was great.
Also,
I love to see you so excited about this stuff. It's great.
Also, what if...
Dude, if it wasn't so good, I wouldn't care to do all to break it down like that. Like, even if it completely falls apart, ultimately, like, the reason I cared enough to think that hard about it is because I was invested, you know? So that's still a credit to the movie.
Also,
but that stuff's hard to get right.
And
because it's so good, there's
Jayson.
still a chance that we're wrong. You know, like,
it's new.
You don't think you're right. I'm not sure that I'm right, because I could absolutely be wrong. They could be cleverer than I am. They have such a hand on everything else. They could absolutely have this under control.
It's not over yet. And it's also possible that I missed something somewhere because I've only seen it a couple times.
Also, maybe this is just me being too, like, fanboyish.
Look what you're wearing. It's fine.
Look who you're talking to.
What if like, if we have to make this work, what if the same thing with, like, the spider coming from a different universe into the universe happened with the Venomverse, where, like, the spider from the Venomverse went into a different universe, and that's why there's no Spider-Man, and that's why it still exists.
Oh, it's possible this has happened before.
Yeah. And that's, like, the only way that it can exist in that movie.
I'm not saying I want this, but it would also be a way to create Venomverse.
Right.
Which is also a comic, because of course it is, but you had that stupid No Way Home business with the after credits, where you had the piece of symbiote from the Venomverse over in MCU. Yeah. And so that, not supposed to be there, could then offshoot and create Venomverse.
Yeah.
Make that whole business.
That would be...
I don't want that, but I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, actually...
This is why I want them to be separate multiverses,
I honestly want a multiverse movie with a bunch of Venoms and have Flash Thompson Venom.
Only if it's a complete joke.
Yeah. No, it would have to be a joke.
It would need to be a parody of this.
Right. It can't take itself seriously at all.
So let's go back. Are there any other events you guys can think of that would have to be part of canon besides Uncle Ben dies?
Yeah, and
a captain dies. I'd be screwed, by the way.
You're not a real captain.
Oh, okay.
You're not a cop.
Yeah, I don't think the protagonist can die if he's the captain. I don't think there's any spider captains.
Yeah, what if Spider-Man is the captain, like, is the cop?
I mean,
well, the big one... he is with Mayday Parker in Marvel 2.
obviously another big one is the loved one dying, or a love interest dying.
Yeah.
Either
Gwen
Gwen
Stacy.
or Peter.
Because we hate because Marvel Comics hated the Stacys.
Yeah, they got the worst of it.
I just love the meta commentary with all that, man. It's like it all becomes archetype because of arbitrary choices that were made by writers in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Like it's wonderful. Black costume Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I wonder.
That should be one.
that was shown in the movie.
Okay. What about Spider?
What about Man Spider?
Yeah. Man Spider.
Oh,
where he has to mutate too far at some point. Does that have 6 arms?
Maybe.
Is that one?
I want to believe that getting buried alive by Crazy Craven is a canon event.
Or somebody? Yeah, that has to happen.
Do all of them have to wear glasses and then not?
Do they all have a version of Doc Ock and or Green Goblin?
Probably those are the two.
Like of some kind.
Do they all have to have a Clone Saga?
Clone Saga. That was what you could. The best way to track this back probably is just major things that Bendis felt the need to redo in Ultimate. If it's a big thing in Ultimate, it probably happens in every universe.
They all have to have a Sinister Six.
Yeah.
That is one thing that's a little weird about making some of the clones here their own universe, right? Like, because Ben Reilly, what is he in his universe? Is he just Ben Reilly? Is he still a clone? Like, what is he?
Yeah, and why?
Were there multiple Spider-Mans there? Where's his Peter Parker?
Yeah, and also I saw Bagman, but Bagman is the
Yeah,
same.
I noticed that on my second viewing. I was like, why is Bagman there? He's just a costume. He's
not from a different universe. He's just Peter Parker.
The only assumption that I can make with that is that every universe is, or a lot of them that are at least where Spider-Man is still Peter Parker, is a what if universe where he continued being whatever he was for that period of the status quo. So Bagman is an event in 616, but but pretend like there's an offshoot what if universe where he just kept wearing a bag on his head, and that's Bagman.
That's amazing. I hope that's what it is.
that has to be what it is. And then I'll break your brain with this. What about Ultimate? You know, we've got the Miles Morales from this, but that's not Ultimate Universe Miles Morales. He has a similar backstory, but where does the Ultimate Universe fit in all of this?
Yeah, and he has a very different costume too, which I kind of dug. I loved it without the webbing, without the red webbing, and just kind of the black look.
Yeah. And then what about the 616 Miles Morales that isn't anything at all like who goes by the moniker Ultimatum, which is ridiculous. But
what?
And he's not a black man. And
wait, what?
Yeah. It's,
wait, what?
Like, where's that guy? He's not Spider-Man.
Wait, that's
weird.
just a random dude.
Yeah.
They
But he's a villain.
Ultimatum.
He calls himself Ultimatum, which is one of the worst events in comic history. I've never read that stuff. I just read up about that. Anyway, does anybody in the comments have other things that have to be in canon?
One more day, Carl Maxey said. I hope not.
I hope not. Yeah, I had that.
That needs
too.
to be out of every canon.
It's too infamous to not be there.
Oh, I wanted to bring this up because, Dad and I were talking about this out of the theater.
Yeah. We're at 2 hours, and I don't feel like we're done.
Yeah, I don't feel like we're done. The Spot has a line that I caught that Dad didn't really. After he leaves the Venomverse, he goes, the power of the multiverse in the palm of my hand.
Yeah. That one made me groan a little bit. I was like,
that one actually made me laugh.
But it could be...
It could be something that he could say. That's why it's okay. I'm okay with it.
Well, what I was going to say is, they might not have even been thinking Spider-Man 2, but I mean, they probably were.
Yeah.
Well, but that line's all over No Way Home. Like, Melina says that so many times in No Way Home.
Does he keep saying it No Way Home?
Yeah, he
well, then they
keeps
have to be
saying
thinking
it No
about
Way
that.
Home.
Yeah.
Spit on nights here. DJ, I have been kicking around for a long time, and I don't know where I'll put it at this point because I'm running out of space. A 2099 tattoo, and after this movie, and after this movie, I kind of want it more because
you got to get it on your chest, just a big.
I would never do that, but I thought about doing it on a leg or maybe on my back or something.
Well, that or Death of Superman.
Well, I'll find a way to work them both in.
Death of Spider-Man.
I'm listening to that track
man.
all day.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah,
I did the
really got
geekiest
me.
thing when as soon as we got in the car, I was like, Grace. So Spider-Man Unlimited was the show and that came out in 2000, and they had this is the theme song. I played her the theme song, and I was like, now listen to the Spider-Man 2099 theme, and I played that for her. She was like, that's awesome. I was like, it is.
I don't care. Just take our word for it. It's great.
No, she loved the movie. She had a really good time with it. We saw it in Dolby Cinema, which is like the premium theater where
I thought about going that way.
Super rich blacks, or super high contrast and super vibrant colors. Amazing. And then today I saw it, right before I got here, I saw it in IMAX, and it's amazing. It was massive.
I bet. Well, that's another thing.
Go see it in the best way you can, guys, because it's worth it.
That's another way another thing I wanted to mention is that, and the first one had this too, but this even more so, I think, just the energy and the boldness of it. Like, it's so easy to forget you're looking at animation. And it's not like we haven't seen, obviously, epic, 2D and 3D animated stuff, but, like, it's different because it's a comic book movie, but it's epic in the way that like a Lion King or something was, where like it feels so much fuller and than it should, just being a thing drawn in a computer. And the soundtrack has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, the soundtrack is amazing.
And spectacular. And Web of. And what's another something Spider-Man?
Superior?
Superior? I mean, it is to a lot of things. DJ, let's go through Super Chats.
All right, let's
if you would.
out.
And Black Costume.
Black Costume Spider-Man, that's the movie. You should just call it that. Patrick Hogue.
Hi.
$4.99.
Gonna
hey,
take
Cap.
you for a ride. I don't know that name.
Hey Cap, big fan and hopeful filmmaker you'll cover one day.
Good luck, man.
I'm just curious of what your opinion of Lord and Miller in today's Hollywood industry.
We need more guys like this, more duos like this, I think.
Yeah, they're killing it.
And they're kind of lucky that they're being left alone enough that they can take some of the kinds of story risks they're taking and not have their stuff watered down too much. It's not like everything they touch is gold. I didn't like the Lego Movie 2, which I think is maybe one of the reasons I wasn't as excited about this movie as I should have been. Just because the last animated sequel that I saw from them, they didn't nail. And I kind of
did they do that one?
At least one of them did.
Okay, because I know they don't direct the Spider-Verse movies; they're just producers.
Yeah, but they're writing these, are they not?
That I don't know.
Okay, I don't have enough information.
They're definitely involved.
I mean, I can find that information. I just didn't know. Written by the Lord and Miller and then David Callahan. So it's 3 writers.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell how much they're involved. I know they had a good, strong following.
Callahan has written a lot of crappy things.
Oh, gosh, no.
But luckily he didn't ruin this. I mean, you like Shang-Chi, but I think that movie is dull. But he wrote
the
2021 Mortal Kombat, which is...
He wrote Wonder Woman 84.
He wrote Wonder Woman 84. He wrote Zombieland Double Tap. He wrote Ant-Man.
He wrote Godzilla.
He rewrote. He wrote the first 2 Expendables. He's got a track record.
Yeah, everybody needs paychecks here and there.
Well, apparently he needs them more often than he needs to make art. But this movie's great, so whatever. But anyway, I would be fascinated to go to another universe, speaking of multiverse, where those guys actually did get to make their Han Solo movie and didn't get fired off that project.
Ooh, that sounds like a sad universe where they where that like ends their career and we don't get this.
That's a good point, but they could have got their career ended over that. They got fired in the middle of making it.
Yeah, they've had a crazy career for sure. TH1, $5. I think they will address 2099's backstory in 3 like how they did Gwen in this, because you had the same complaint about Lizard Parker in your review of 1.
You know, that's a great point. Maybe they're starting a trend where the next movie will open with his backstory and he'll be a... Because Dan said, you know, he'll straight up antagonist, but it's possible. I mean, he could be both, right? Isn't it possible that it could turn into almost like a triple protagonist thing, where like next movie we open on his backstory, and now he is as much of a central figure as the other two are?
Yeah.
Hadn't thought of that. Thanks, man.
That's really good. That's really good, Tom. Yeah, that could be cool. And we could open it up, kind of like Return of the King, where it opens with like Smeagol's Gollum's backstory in the beginning.
Yeah, good call.
Mutale.
Oh, AMC, Sensational Spider-Man is another
Sensational
classic Spider-Man moniker. Yeah.
Sensational Spider-Man. Is that actually a
Yes.
color?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Man,
I
I
have
need to
some of
read more
those.
Spider-Man. I really do.
I've got lots of it.
You do. You have lots of it. You got lots of amazing.
I have a pretty solid, amazing collection.
He has an amazing collection, guys.
I have an amazing collection. It's good.
It's really hard to use that word in any Spider-Man stuff. Like whenever that word comes up, it clicks in my brain.
Reviewing Spider-Man sucks because you
That's the
can't
title.
use adjectives.
At least you can use fantastic and uncanny.
Yeah, at least it's not like other things.
I don't know when I would ever think to call something in Spider-Man uncanny. Like, my brain wouldn't even go there. Okay, what else have you got there, DJ?
Mutale, thoughts on people saying Jessica Drew fighting while pregnant and Peter B we talked about this a little bit, taking his daughter to battles is irresponsible.
You know, for some reason I didn't have that as much with her being pregnant, but maybe I should have. It's the same thing. I mean, like you're endangering a child. Like,
yeah, I was fine with it just because the whole movie is all about parenting. Like that's what it's about. So having her be there pregnant and him there with his kid like makes sense. It just
Every single
do they-
character is about.
but is it supposed to be irresponsible or not?
I mean, I think he's supposed to be irresponsible. I just think he
But is she?
is kind of unable to take. I mean, it is. I mean, yeah.
No, I know, but what I mean is the movie trying to convey that? Like, is she making a mistake that we're supposed to be aware of, or is it just
Yeah, I
a
see what
cute
you're saying.
plot point? Like, that matters.
Yeah, I don't think the movie ever
I don't
comes
want
down
there to be
against her for that.
drastic consequences over it.
No, I don't want that either. That'd be
I don't
horrible.
need to be like retcon Todd McFarlane Spawn miscarriage or anything, but this got dark quick with my 13-year-old next to me. But yeah, no, I'm conflicted about it before anything. Like, again, with Peter Parker specifically, that just felt cartoony before it was anything. But you made a really good point about it earlier, where you or Dan won, that maybe they're more aware of the irresponsibility of that than I'm giving them credit for. With her looking 7 months pregnant on a motorcycle, I don't know.
Yeah, I think she's being reckless, but it also is playing it down quite a bit because she's such a minor character. And then another one from TH1, $5. So I think this was in reference to when he called Hobie a variant of Miles. He said not just because he was black, he also looked a bit similar in the face, and it also would explain why Gwen stays at his place. I don't think so. I think they were just two different.
No, I think you're overreading
Characters.
that, and also that's clearly a super platonic thing. I don't think that's her going, "You look like Miles, so I'm thinking about sleeping with you." That's not what's happening.
No, that was just Miles reading way too far into it because he was, a little bit jealous.
Spider John Kelling says the real question is, how was Jess pregnant for so long? She was about to pop when she first showed up, and Gwen said she left with them for months. I missed some of that, I think.
Oh, I don't think she was. I mean, it's impossible to say when someone's about to pop. Like some women barely ever show, and some women get enormous. Like I didn't think.
And some women show a lot for a long time.
Yeah. I
so when I say she looked 7 months pregnant, like, she might not be, but I'm just saying that's what she looked like from.
Yeah, but so does Spot. So I mean, it's just animation. It can it can look however.
That's a good point too.
The characters.
We don't have an actual pregnant woman.
All
right, moving right along.
Mutale, Oscar Isaac said he wants Pedro Pascal to play an old Spider person in the sequel. What Spider-Man could he play? Also, better spot, 90s show or ASTV? Across the Spider-Verse.
Let's answer that second one first, because that'll be quicker. Better what now?
Better spot, 90s show or ASTV?
I mean, I can't compare them, because one is certainly telling a smarter, deeper story, and we don't have the second half of the Spot story. I mean, that's one of the big question marks, right? Like, he's been introduced and that's it. Like,
yeah.
Or I should say, he's gotten his tragic backstory and he's like leveled up his villainness, but that's all we got with him. I mean, they make it very clear at the end of that movie that they've got tons more to do with him in that second movie. So I'm not ready to do that kind of comparison. But if gun to my head, like this one, but that's easy, you know.
Yeah, and it is really refreshing and cool because we've done that. I feel like we've done that a lot in the MCU and other superhero movies, where the villain who like wants to be a serious villain, like he has all the stuff he wants to be. Like, he doesn't want to be a freak of the week. He wants to be an arch nemesis, and he feels like he has it. But then to actually, he's right, like, and become the arch nemesis, and it all like clicks into place was so cool.
Yeah, and I was blindsided by that, and I don't know, like, I appreciated being challenged by a thing like this that's it's about formula, it's playing with formula, and I've seen 6,000 superhero movies and I didn't see a lot of it coming. Like, that's super refreshing.
It may, because every time something else does this, it's just a reference just for the sake of the reference. They just use those terms because the audience is familiar with them. Here it's like, no, we know what this means, and we have it perfectly laid out and planned, and it gives us hope. It gives me hope, man. Every time I see one of these, I'm like, yes.
It also makes you
alive and well.
It also makes your villain more menacing and scary when your protagonist underestimates him.
Well, we all underestimated him.
Yep. Jayson, feel free to bow out if you need to go to bed, because it's getting pretty late.
Yeah, I might need to.
Do you have any other major things that you want to bring up?
You
haven't talked a great deal.
I've kind of said what I wanted to say. I didn't have a lot to say about this movie.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had some really good thoughts, man, that I didn't even think of. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
I hope you like it better on a second viewing.
Yeah.
Do you want to go again?
I do.
Okay, well, you have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. And DJ and I are going to finish the show.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, buddy.
We'll carry on.
DJ, I'm really glad you were able to make it tonight.
Oh, yeah, you would be.
I'd be floating all by myself here.
And I'm glad I was able to make it too. Such a fun time talking to Dan about Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't talked to him, I don't
great.
think, at all since I did that video on my channel with him. It's been a long time since I've seen him.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Dan in a long
much,
time
so.
either. I mean, Dan and I message back and forth some, but I haven't actually sat down and talked to him in a long time.
Yeah.
No, I would have been all alone. I would have been like, I all float on okay. Okay, how many super chats do we have left?
We got about 6.
Okay, let's write those out. And then Carl Maxey says, I endanger my kids all the time.
By taking them to terrible movies? Is that what he's talking about?
Probably so. Oh, speaking of that, can I tell a story real quick? Sorry, it being just me and you now, I have to keep reminding myself we're not doing a Captain Logan show, and this is a review.
Yeah, it's just turned into a Captain Logan show at this point.
But may I tell a story real quick? I wanted to
Sure.
do this with Jayson down here, but I forgot about it, and he's already gone upstairs.
Oh, this is the theater experience.
He might be coming back. Because
He's like, wait.
Jayson, are you coming back to help me tell this story?
Yeah.
Okay, he's gonna come back and help me tell the story. I already moved your chair. So we come out of the movie theater and we just watched a movie with 7,000 Spider-Mans chasing one Spider-Man.
This story. Yeah.
And we got to watch a little bit of a chase of our own. We come outside and there's this car that just guns it across the parking lot past us.
And
we were
Dad
standing
goes
right
like,
there. Just,
that's way too fast.
I went, Jayson, that's way too fast for a parking lot.
And
yeah,
then,
he's gonna drive in like 3 years. Like, don't do that in a parking lot, right?
And then another car goes, and it's going like almost the same speed. And Dad goes, "Yeah, that car's also going way too fast." And then
I thought maybe they were together.
Yeah, and then we look at the back of that second car, and it says police.
Oh,
and then
wow.
lights start going on, and it's like a big chase. And this first guy is just doing rounds around the parking lot.
What?
And having a real fun time doing it.
While this cop car is chasing him. And then he darts off, like he tries to outrun the cop. He darts off.
He doesn't, like, pull over.
This was after Spider-Verse.
Kansas people are crazy.
Yeah, and we don't know if that cop ever caught him. My wife thinks the cop probably just wrote down the license plate and got him later. Instead of like endangering people by driving all around the movie theater parking lot.
But
anyway,
wow,
we just wanted to
that's
tell
crazy.
that story because that was eventful.
that was awesome.
Jayson was like, I can't wait till I get my license, Dad.
No.
That was probably good incentive to not drive that way. He was like, oh crap, here comes a cop. Or maybe he's thinking, well, cops are really easy to outrun.
Yeah, cops are really incompetent. I can just go around the parking lot a couple times.
Anyway, good night, Jayson.
Good night.
Thanks for popping back in.
Yeah.
Okay, DJ, let's go through these super chats, sir.
I love that you just immediately went into dad mode of like, now Jayson, that's too fast to be driving. Like, went straight into a lecture. He's like, I know, Dad.
It's a little fast. Don't do that.
All right, Matthew Bass.
I'm always setting a great example for my children. That's why I have 10 tattoos.
$5. Love how much of a Spider-Man movie this turned out to be.
Right?
Right. That's basically what we just talked about for 2 hours because we freaking loved it. Oh man.
And again, I didn't love it as much first time around because this is going to be such a weird thing to say. I think I was too surprised by how much I was liking it to like it enough, if that makes any sense. But I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, sometimes you can shoot yourself in the foot. Most of the time, I think it is best to know nothing going in and not get your expectations up at all and just kind of go in as low as you can. But sometimes you can kind of, if you go in with no expectations, you kind of have a weird reaction and you don't know how to respond.
You're just not mentally prepared.
Yeah.
To like care or to be thinking or you know what I mean? Like you always have some degree of expectation, some some assumption, and you can walk into your umpteenth superhero thing and just be in kind of that headspace of I'm gonna watch it. Even if you want to be open to it, not that you're expecting it to be that you're wanting it to be bad, that you're expecting it to be bad, but just that you've been here and done this 1,000 times, and with this, like I'm expecting it to be a little bit better than your average because that first one is, but all cards on the table, sometimes it can feel like a little bit of a chore. Like I like superhero movies, but I see them all the time, and these days they tend to be kind of formulaic and watered down. So anyway, you walk into these things and you're just thinking, okay, 3-act action movie. I don't expect to be challenged. You're not in the headspace for, I gotta be on my, I got my wits about me. And this is one of those movies.
Yeah. I also liked it better the second time. I think
Preconceptions. That was the word I was looking for.
I was also not as prepared the first time, and I enjoyed it even better the second time. So see it again, guys, because it's awesome. And I will.
And especially if you thought it was too long, or you thought it was bogged down by talking scenes, give it a second watch and see if you still have that. Because I didn't when I saw it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think because you see all the pieces more, and you can understand what they're doing in the craft a lot better the second time.
There you go. Exactly.
Apologize to Matthew. He actually meant to say, I love how much of a Spider-Gwen movie that this turned out to be.
Oh, I see.
I 100% agree with you.
Me too, yeah. Well, I loved her in the first movie. She was really a standout. So there have been a lot of people saying, like, give her her own spinoff, and this kind of did the next best thing. The one spin-off thing that they're talking about right now that sounds like it probably will actually happen is like an all-female thing, and I kind of wish they would just give her her own movie instead of doing Spider-Verse but just with the girls. But on the other hand, I will say that there's a lot of good precedent in the comics for that, because I forget what book it is. You know what, actually, I think it is just in the Spider-Gwen's book, or Ghost Spider, or whatever it is, like that third volume maybe, where she has a multiversal device, a watch that lets her go between dimensions, and she regularly hangs out with Jessica and I think it's Silk maybe, and they have like a 3-person team, and they just like hang out together, but then, you know, villain stuff happens, and so they fight together. So they'll probably make a movie like that, and as long as the team's not too big, I'm actually on board for that. If they want to do like a threesome or foursome kind of thing with some of the female characters, there's some good stuff about that in the comics. Like, I'm not against that on principle.
Yeah, that's fine. I trust these writers to be able to make that work. I mean, she's already got a good relationship with Jessica in this film.
It doesn't need to be the multiverses at stake. It doesn't need to be about breaking dimensions down. It needs to just be the three of them, or however many it is, going to a dimension to solve a thing, or multiple dimensions where each... Because some of those stories would be about... I don't know, it's sort of like Birds of Prey, but with spider characters, where like each of them would have personal problems they need help from the other ones to come in and solve. So you could do a cool almost vignette piece with it, right? Where it's like Spider-Gwen has a problem in her dimension, and her friends come help her, and then in turn they go to, you know, Jessica's dimension and help her with the thing, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, there's a movie there, a real low key kind of thing, but that's what I hope they make with it.
Yeah, I hope so too. Anthony Cabrera, did Spider-Man India know Singh was meant to die?
It sure doesn't watch like it. And I wouldn't think they would tell him, because I don't know, I'm of two minds about it, because it seems like
everybody knew.
Everybody on that, it seems like everybody on that team knows about the parts of the canon.
Yeah, he had to, because when they show up, he's like, Gwen, have you told him about Hobie yet? Well, how much have you told him? Like, they're talking stuff that Miles doesn't know. So I think he's in on it. And that's why I think he went straight for his girlfriend instead. Like, that was just his decision. And then he said, actually, no, I 100% agree with myself now that I'm remembering, because when he's pulling up his girlfriend in the bus, he says, I can save both. So he's kind of doing a Miles thing too.
Yeah.
He's trying to break the canon there a little bit too, which is cool.
But the argument for it, giving him credit, is that whole speech later on about that Miles has, where it's like, okay, but like with any of you guys with Uncle Ben, even if you knew that he was supposed to die, would you have just stood there and let it happen?
Yeah,
no, they probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, they would have.
And so that means that that's kind of in the character of all of these guys.
Which means that not McGuire. Wow. 2099, by including all of these Spider-Men into this knowledge, he's making it worse, because now they're all having to struggle with this, and they all know. Like, if that was the one thing that I was like, why is it so massive? Like, I feel like this story could have been told with like 20 Spider-Men in that third act. Why is he letting so many Spider-Men into this organization?
Yeah. Well, it's to get butts in the seats of the theater, and it worked. But Jayson actually had, and I was hoping he would bring this up, and I guess he never had the opportunity to or didn't think of it, so I'll make this point for him. But one of his big gripes out of the theater was, why are they all there at the same time? He's like, none of them are at their respective universes protecting their universe. Like, they're just all there. And it's not like
and they're just like eating drinking coffee and stuff. Yeah,
they weren't all there for a meeting. It wasn't like, okay, now Miles has a day pass, everyone show up. It wasn't like that.
Yeah, they were just walking around and like, yeah, I didn't like that. I wish it was kind of a smaller task force, like Gwen was saying, and I think it would have had less holes in it. Not a spot pun, just plot holes.
It would have, but I'm gonna be I'm gonna be contradictory in saying that I did enjoy some of the random cameos. So, you know, I mean, I know your biggest issue was certain cameos, but like, I'm not gonna deny. I'm glad that I got to see like the Spider T-Rex and some of that stuff. Super fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It doesn't detract from the story. Mutale, should this film be nominated for Best Picture? Oh, absolutely. Oh, you mean Best Picture? Oh, no, it won't. They won't nominate an animated film for Best Picture.
No, but it could win animation again.
Yeah, I think it absolutely
also
will.
Not gonna have much to go up against. Well, can the Mario movie get nominated?
Yeah, they can. It probably will.
And it'll probably win. Just actually, I guess I don't know, because I want to say
I think Spider-Verse will destroy it.
I want to say just based on popularity, but it's not always popular. Because I don't know. It's hard to say.
It's usually just a Disney or Pixar film. It's rarely anything else. Illumination's never won. I mean, Disney and Pixar both have films this year, so if Elemental and I can't remember what the other one's called, but they could be great too.
But Elemental's getting lukewarm reviews, so that's not going to have any shot over this.
Yeah, I think this is.
Now, I've not seen it, so I don't know, but it's not. Yeah. So far early on, it sounds like it's not getting great reviews, and that looked like really underwhelming to me. I have no interest in seeing that.
Yeah, if you're asking if it should be nominated for Best Animated Picture, then yes. If you're asking Best Picture, there's no way. They won't even. Yeah, they won't do that.
And I mean, I loved this movie, but you know, it's kind of like asking any like really great superhero movie where I'm like, well, if this were to get nominated, then I'm going to go back in time and go, how come, you know, this couldn't get, you know, certain other movies couldn't get nominations? You know what I mean? Like yes, this is great, but we couldn't get a Best Picture nomination for, you know, Dark Knight back in the day, or did that get nominated? Because I don't think it did. I think it was just Ledger posthumously.
Yeah, it wasn't the big awards. It was Best Actor, and then well, that is a big one, and then it was just like technical.
If this deserves a Best Picture nomination, so does The Batman. Is all I'm saying. The Batman is every bit as good of a film and as compelling of a story as this is. So I don't know. I would be irritated.
Well, it just depends on what comes out, right? Like, I don't think
if that Batman were possible,
top 10 of that year. I don't know what else is coming out this year.
Right.
Spider-Verse might not be in my top 10 either. Mutale, better 2099 design, Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse? I don't remember what he was like at the end of the first movie.
What kind of design did he say? I missed it. I missed some of that.
Better 2099. Was it
different?
Wasn't he just in the like end credits with the 60s show?
No, we see him right after that. They do a big reveal where, remember, he's talking to Lila.
No, I don't remember that end thing at all. I don't know if I watched that since the theater.
Yeah, it pans up and we see him in the animation style of that movie, but I didn't realize it was any different than here because it has been a little bit.
Yeah, I wondered about that because I would like to go back and watch because I don't know if I feel like the end credits with Miles and Gwen has to also be different, right? Because did they know he was going to be so much older at that point and what the
yeah, you're right. I would like to go back and look at that. However, I will say that's one of the best uses for the sake of story continuity, of an after credit scene I've ever seen. I really like the way that was handled.
That was really cool.
Because, again, you didn't realize that what was being set up was a continuation of the same story. It felt like it was just a tacked-on way to go, we're going to have more of this, and we're going to see these characters together again.
Scene, and now we love it. Like,
now it's really good.
Changed it. That's nuts.
Well, because we got to see her, like, struggle to even be able to get a way to go see him again. Like, now that I've been with her and her plight and everything that happened with her father and with Lizard Peter and all of that, God, we're at 2 hours and 37 minutes, but there's so much in this movie.
I know, and I'm starting to fade. It's like
packed
because I'm still on Atlanta time.
Yeah, so it's like close to midnight in your brain. We will blow through the rest of this. Go ahead, DJ. DJ, thanks for writing it out with me, though, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. I'm down to talk Spider-Man whenever. Spider John Kelling, $2. Just got bit by a spider. How screwed is my life? Pretty bad.
It depends on what universe it's from, I think, is the answer there.
Yeah, but there will be key events that will happen.
You're right.
For sure.
It's screwed in other ways, though. Do you know any captains personally?
Better cut them out of your life immediately.
That's a question. Yeah, get them out of there for their sake as much as your own.
Do you have an alleyway behind your house with metal trash cans?
With a trash can, yeah. Right.
Do you have a wrestling costume? If not, you're going to have to make one. Thank you for... I love the name. He changed his name to Spider John Kelling. Mutale, losing a Gwen Stacy is a canon event. Yes, for sure. Or Peter, if you are Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, that was another thing I wanted to bring up, too, that's a little bit weird, is they don't straight up say canon with this, but hear me out. Gwen says to Miles, when they're starting to get closer, and he thinks maybe they're gonna actually get together, she says, Gwen Stacy always falls for Spider-Man. The word choice is important because they're trying to, they're finding clever ways to connect the dots with things, even though, between all these different stories, even though some of the characters are different. So it's like with Gwen Stacy, but he's not Peter Parker, so we'll say it always happens with a Gwen Stacy and a Spider-Man. Okay. But then what's weird with that is she fell for Peter Parker, who is not Spider-Man in her universe. She is the respective Spider-Man for her own universe, and so she's stuck in the canon thing. There's not multiple Spider-Mans, or there's not supposed to be, in universes, and I guess if you have a Ben Reilly thing or something, it's an exception, and it doesn't entirely count, is the sense I'm getting. So when she says, a Gwen Stacy always falls for Spider-Man, but if you had never gotten to another universe, that would have never happened with you because there wasn't a Spider-Man in your universe.
I think there's a line that makes it work if she's the only Gwen that turns into a Spider-Woman, because that you got the line right, but right before that she says, in every other universe, Gwen always falls for Spider-Man.
Does she say every other universe?
And it never works out.
And then he says there's the first time for everything.
So that makes sense if she's saying every other universe besides her. But,
which I think is also maybe foreshadowing for his attempt at proving that you can get around canon, you can live your own life. It doesn't have to be predestination versus free will, because he wants to make it work with her even though it never has in other universes, and he wants to save his father even though the captain always dies.
And you don't know
this
any
is such
of that
a weird
stuff
conversation.
Yet. Such a good script because all that is there already. One of the first things Miles says to Spot is, "I'm Spider-Man, and no one can take that away from me."
Yeah.
At the beginning of the movie.
I'm so mad that you got to it before me because I meant to bring that up a long time ago. Yes, that's that line is amazing. You can't take that away from me, and then that's the big crux of his his conflict. I was gonna say internal conflict. I guess both. Later on. Yeah, those were the two big cool foreshadowing things that I was impressed with at the beginning that I wanted to bring up. It's that, and then like I said earlier, it's the business with the art, with the piece of artwork that Gwen Stacy says is is meta commentary.
Yeah.
And
Which
is
just
art
so
in and of
cool
itself.
That we got to see like an actual. He's actually at the art museum, the Met, and he's like tearing up all like real like that big.
Well, I didn't realize that was supposed to be real stuff.
Balloon dog is real art, yeah. And
That's
the fact
great.
that it breaks open and you find out there's a bunch of little fake little balloon dogs, and oh, that's cool. Like, obviously we don't know that because it hasn't broken open, but that was great. Me and Grace were laughing at the art stuff, and the fact that we get like a Da Vinci vulture for that scene is just perfect. It all.
The best line in that bit is when she's like, "Don't use fire. You're made of paper."
What are you, parchment?
What are you, parchment?
That's great. All right. We just got another one, so let's catch up here. TH1, Spot has a bit of a Joker, I created you, you created me.
Oh, yeah, of course. But that's
because he's the arch nemesis.
But that's classic. See, I mean, it's not just Joker. That's classic arch nemesis superhero stuff. Anyway, I mean, I guess he's saying it that way because it's a lot like the '89 line where it's like you made me, I made you.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it is playing with that trope again.
TH1, another one, $5. Between Marvel and DC lately, you can almost do a 6 degrees of the multiverse, of the multiverses. You can relate Raimi Spider-Man to Terminator. I'm heading to bed. Great show, guys.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that except
a lot of multiverse stuff going on.
Yeah, and lots of different directors that have made things that that are making superhero movies, just like with actors now. So I mean, sometimes I'll get a question like this on the Captain Logan show, where somebody would be like, "Isn't it crazy that like this actor in a superhero movie is in this actor with a superhero movie?" I'm like, 15 years ago, yes, not anymore. Like everybody's in superhero movies now.
Yeah,
there's no longer a novelty to it. I'm sorry to say.
Let's see, Mutale. 2 more from Mutale, and then we will be finished. How would Eric feel about this film?
I couldn't tell you. I have not talked to him about it. And I don't want to speculate. He didn't love the first one, but he might appreciate the story more. I don't know. Sorry, I don't like to do that with people. Like I'm not gonna guess it. How my friends. Look, I know you guys would love it if he was still reviewing stuff. It's just not what he does anymore. So, like,
just put on a brown coat and do reviews as Eric. That's what the people want.
Yeah, no, that would not satisfy anybody.
All right, last one from Mutale. This is the second superhero film this year where a character talks about holes.
That is true, but in this particular case, it was tasteful, even though you still had somebody who was like, "Hey, stop talking about your holes."
You're making us uncomfortable.
But it worked.
I'm assuming he's talking about Guardians. I haven't seen that yet, but
no. What was it? I can't remember either. But what was it?
Guardians.
Sorry, Mutala, you'll have to remind me. No. It is Guardians. It is Guardians.
Okay. That's what I assumed. Sounds like a joke that would be in there.
Now that you say that. No, and that was fine there too. But I thought there was another place where somebody said, no, I thought there was one where they did that and it actually annoyed me and I didn't like it. But I can't think of what it was.
3 of the 4.
Were there 3 of them?
That's hilarious.
No, I don't think it was Guardians 3 now that I'm thinking about it. No, I remember complaining really hard about it. Was it? No, it wasn't Shazam 2. What the heck was it? Well, anyway, I don't know. But I remember complaining about something with that where I was like, this is very uncomfortable and not funny. Ant-Man 3, that's what it was. It was Ant-Man 3.
Yeah, that came out this year.
It sure was.
Remember that?
Thank you.
And then the last part of his, also thoughts on a live-action Miles movie being in the works. Did you see this?
No.
It has been in the work. It's been announced. Apparently, a live-action Miles is greenlit. I've already said I don't need any live-action superhero movies at this point, so I definitely don't need that. I don't know why we're doing that.
And it's not MCU? It's probably Sony. Is it going to be part of Venomverse? And then is that going to be our only Spider-Man with that, because I really don't want that. If they announced that they were doing it in MCU, I would be somewhat more interested in it, I guess, just because it's kind of weird that we set it up sort of in Homecoming and then never talked about it again at all, except now it's been referenced again here.
But I didn't need, he was so young. Donald Glover is so young. Like, to have he can't have a nephew. I guess he can, but I was expecting that to just be like way far flung in the future when this Peter's older, then we'll finally get a Miles that's that age. But
yeah, no, I'm with you. But a Miles, like, in his own movie where we do it like Venom, where there was never a Peter Parker, I don't want that. Like, for the love of God, don't do that.
No, do not do that, Sony. I don't know what Sony's. This is what's the problem. This is like, I'm torn because this movie's so great and I love it, but I don't want Sony to get a big head. I don't want Sony.
They already have that. Yeah,
too much
you
money.
don't want it to get worse. No, in a perfect world, this would be the Spider-Man franchise, because as much as we might not want it to just ride on Multiverse forever, eventually they would have to start spinning characters off and just keeping them inside of a singular universe, right? Yeah. Like, we can be patient if they're this good, and then eventually finally start getting just singular Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. But that is it. We've made it through the Super Chats.
Fantastic. DJ, any other big aspect of this that we missed, that we haven't talked about? There was some point I wanted to make earlier, or a couple minutes ago, that I am not remembering right now, that maybe will come back to me before we finish, but I'm forgetting what it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's lots I could talk about, but...
A question that I was going to ask Dan before he left, that I guess I'll ask you now, is, this is just a little minor thing, but how did you feel about the way we, because I thought this was kind of cool, the way we intercutted, it's late, I can't talk now, the way we intercut Gwen into the scene where Miles is trying to tell his mother that he's Spider-Man and she doesn't know what he's talking about, where, like, I think that was part of why it was difficult to call that he was in a different universe, because we're looking at her and she's actually not in the universe that we're looking at. Like, do you think that's too much of a cheat? Because I actually kind of bought it. I thought that worked okay.
I'm sorry, who are you talking about that we're looking at?
So Gwen is outside of his bedroom.
Mm-hmm. But she's in his regular
But she's in his regular universe, and we think that she's eavesdropping on him while he's talking to his mother, but in fact, she's in a different universe. And I've seen things done like that where I've thought this is kind of a cheat. It's not playing fair with us. I didn't have that with this. I'm not 100% sure why, but I was kind of okay with it.
Yeah, that's the one scene where the filmmaking is manipulating time, right?
It is.
Because it's showing. I don't think she would be standing outside of his window that whole time. Like, she would have gone in much faster, and they're slowing that down a little bit. That's a good point. To build suspense. But yeah, in the moment it works great. And on a second viewing, it didn't bother me, even though I knew what was happening.
Yeah.
But she's outside the whole time he's giving the speech to his mom, which could be possible. I don't know. She could be debating whether or not to go in because he's not there, and she hears his parents inside. And I don't know. So yeah, it didn't bother me.
That's true too. Yeah, I didn't have the same thing that I did when we were like messing with time like that in the Batman, with trying to make you think that Alfred died, but then the events that you're looking at like happened like a couple hours ago, and it's the only place in the movie where you're intercutting with things that aren't happening right now. So like it seemed off. This might not be a time thing. We don't actually know that. You're absolutely right. She could just be standing there out there for a long time thinking about it. And considering their reaction, that's warranted.
Yeah, because she's shocked that he's not there, and she's like realizing that he went to a different universe. So yeah, it could work.
Anyway, sorry, I just thought of that. But did you think of anything else that we didn't bring up?
No, I'm sure I probably will as I think about this movie more. But right now, my brain's fried because we've been talking for almost 3 hours.
Almost 3 hours, and we didn't even take a break during this one.
That's right, we didn't.
Well, this was a delightful conversation, and I appreciate you having it with me, DJ.
Absolutely, man. I don't know. This might be well, it's not my first spoiler cast, but it's my first one in a long time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I should do more of these.
You should. You're always welcome, buddy. And not just because you're good at reading questions.
No, I'm much better at these if I enjoyed the movie. I don't have fun talking about things I didn't like, so that's why I don't come very often.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do tend to talk about more not great things than great things. But this has been a better year, certainly. Yeah. I mean, like not too long ago, we got to do the Mario movie. Jayson and I had a lot of fun with that. Guardians 3 was excellent. So, like, the last couple we've done have been pretty good. Air sucked, but Tetris was good.
Yeah, and I was pretty sure coming into this that everyone was going to like it. Austin was a wild card. I didn't know if he was coming or not. If he was here, I had no idea which way he was going to go, but I was pretty sure Dan liked this, and you already texted me earlier, said it was great. So I was like, okay, we're all on the same page here.
But we don't have to be. We can have debate.
No, but it's just fun when you're all just talking about a movie you like. It's just a fun time.
That's true. Doesn't happen often enough, but again, this year's been better. Anyway, and then it's gonna be weird because in a couple of weeks, is it a couple of weeks or is it a month that we're getting the Flash? I think that's the next one, the next superhero thing that I have to do.
Oh yeah, and that was the first I've seen of that movie. I saw the trailer when I was watching Spiderverse, so I've now seen footage of that movie.
I wish this was coming out later because I'm afraid, and I don't want to let this happen to me, but I'm afraid that it's going to affect my enjoyment of the Flash because I just don't see that movie doing a multiversal story on this level.
Yeah.
And I want to take it on its own terms. It doesn't have to, but
yeah, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like everyone who says they enjoy it, they're saying it's just like a fun comic booky ride. So
yeah, and that's fine. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't want to be pretentious about it. Like that also can be refreshing.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up and call it a day. Thanks everybody. We really appreciate you. I'll be back again with DJ next Thursday night for another Captain Logan show. And I have to go out of town this next weekend, so it's going to affect the Friday show. So I don't know if a rewind commentary is happening this week, but we'll let you know when in the next couple days when I know something. And I also have solidified the date now finally for the next 24-hour Smallville stream. And John and I are going to be doing season 3 Friday overnight into Saturday on the weekend of the 16th, so in 2 weeks. So if you're into Smallville or if you like watching us, try not to fall asleep while we're watching Smallville. Come hang out with us for any part of that. And in the meantime, I was Captain Logan, and this was DJ Martinez. We also had Dan. Thanks a lot to him for being here, and I hope he got to say everything he wanted to say. And thanks to my son Jayson. This was a really, really fun show. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed this hour-long Captain Logan show epilogue to the spoiler cast.
It kind of was, yeah.
That's what we did.
Where at least 3 things I meant to say in the first 20 minutes came out finally.
Yeah. You hang around long enough, you say something insightful. That's what we do here.
Or you see yourself become the villain.
Yeah.
Later on. See you later, folks. Bye, everybody.